Welcome to the afternoon session of the November 15th, 2022 public hearing of the Landmarks Preservation Commission. We will begin our afternoon session with public hearing item number 5. We are about 15 minutes behind schedule, so if you are planning to testify on an item this afternoon, please make sure that you follow along either in the meeting or on our YouTube channel to see where we are in terms of the schedule. And if you do wish to testify on any items, you may do so by joining the Zoom webinar at the estimated time shown on our agenda, which can be found on our website. But again, because we are about 15 minutes behind schedule at this point, just keep an eye on the YouTube to see if we're about to begin the item you're interested in. And with that, I will turn it over to Corey Harala, our Director of Preservation, to take us through the afternoon session.
Thank you, Sarah. We'll begin the afternoon session with public hearing item number 5, LPC 22-09485. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 1389, lot 36, 800 Park Avenue in the Upper East Side Historic District. This is a neo-Renaissance style apartment building designed by Electus D. Litchfield and Pliny Rogers, built in 1925. The application is to establish a master plan governing the future installation of windows.
Okay, commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing. Elliot, if you could unmute yourself, I will give you control of the presentation.
Okay.
Please click on your screen.
Yep.
And then you can change the slides using your arrow keys or your mouse. Please state your name for the record and you may begin.
Hi, my name is Elliot Folsom, and I'm here on behalf of Panorama Windows to, as Corey put it, bring a master plan for 800 Park Avenue. So without further ado, here we go. As you can see, we have the current building photo versus the 1940s tax photo. The building is located in the Upper East Side Historic District. I'm not going to go into the specifics because Corey did a great job in doing that. So we will move on. Our first slide is showing what is the existing facade versus what we are proposing for the east facade, which is the Park Avenue facade. Then we move into the other primary facade, which is located on 74th Street. And again, we have on the left side the existing south facade, and on the right side we have the proposed south facade, showing all the different window configurations we are looking to have approved. Sorry, I went too far. These are the different areas of the presentation we're going to go through. First, we have the second floor. Then we're going to be moving on to the third floor, and then we're going to be moving on to the 15th floor, or the top floor. One thing worth noting is that all floors in between are okay, and they meet. They're able to be approved at a staff level, so we're not going to have to review those items. Finally, we move on to the back or the rear courtyard, where there is question as to whether or not some of the existing windows are in fact special windows. So we will start off in discussing the second floor. And basically, what I've done is highlighted the different areas of the building and tried to, as best I could, provide accurate, close photos from the based on the 1940s tax photos. So the historic casement windows on the second floor were originally a pair of out-swing casement windows that had a 4-high grid pattern, and the top transom was divided in two, so it had a wider center munting. The existing windows are a combination of tilt-turn windows, which are full light, and multi-light double hung windows. And then what we're proposing is we're proposing to do away with the casement and actually use a combination of 8/8 and 6/6 double hung windows. So we were looking to create uniformity in not only the building building, but also in surrounding buildings by using standard multi-light double hung windows. These are some of the buildings in the historic district that are in very close proximity to the to 800 Park Avenue, and they were identified because they had limestone podiums on the first 3 floors. And it's kind of hard to tell, but you can see that each and every one of them is utilizing double hungs with multi-light panes on the 2nd floor, as opposed to what we saw in 800 Park Avenue, which is utilizing outswing casements or some type of casement window. And just for reference, this is another building by the same architect. It's a completely different style, but I wanted to point this out so that you can see kind of what the aesthetic was that he was going for, or that they were going for. Now we're going to move on to the the 3rd floor. So the 3rd floor was subtly different in that they were actually proposing, or they actually had double hung windows in an 8/8 grid pattern and a 4/4 grid pattern, and they utilized a wide center mullion. And it's believed that they did that to match the meeting styles of the casement windows below. So currently on the 3rd floor, you have a combination of 8/8 and 6/6 double hung windows. We are planning to actually replace in kind what's existing and have it be 8/8 and 6/6 double hung windows, because we believe that by eliminating the casements and therefore the wider center meeting styles, there's no need for a wider center muntin. So with the proposed change on the 2nd floor, there would no longer be need for a wider center muntin on the 3rd floor. This would also work, as we're trying to do, to promote uniformity throughout the building. Now we move on to the top floor, the 15th floor. So here is a little interesting because you have 2 different configurations. As you can see in the top right photo, you have double hung windows with unequal sash. In the left 2 windows, and in the right 4 windows, you have casement windows that have multi-lights in the operable sash. We presume that the historic window is actually a double hung window with a simulated round top. And the reason being is that you've got a masonry pier separating the 2 windows, and from looking at it on the inside, it appears that space is actually a box where there were original weight and chain. And so that was what was separating the 2, and that the casement windows were replaced after the fact. And currently what's existing on the 15th floor are just single light casements, again with a round top. And then for the proposed 15th floor windows, we're planning on reverting back to what we presume to be the historic, which would be an unequal sash double hung window with a simulated round top to match the masonry opening. So again, the plan is to revert back to the presumed historic condition of the unequal sash, round top, multi-light windows. And now we move on to the rear courtyard, which is interesting in that you have 3 instances in this center line here. I can't see my mouse. In this center line of windows, where you actually have leaded glass inserts into the existing or historic casement windows. What makes it more interesting is the fact that none of the 3 leaded glass configurations are the same. They're all different. Additionally, there are situations where you have the adjacent window on this angled wall also share the same leaded glass pattern. It is worth noting that on the 10th floor and on the 15th floor, you actually have casement inserts. So the 10th floor, the original double hung window was removed and there was an interior casement window with the same leaded glass pattern. On the 5th floor, however, the double hung window was kept in place and there was a casement that was inserted interior of that. Now on the 3rd floor, we see that same conditions, and I'll actually show you some pictures of that as we get a little bit further. And on top of that, it was believed, presumed again, that many of these windows that had the glazing changed to leaded glass was to make sure that, or was to help eliminate the view of the building that is standing on the other side of this very narrow courtyard. And I actually have a photo that shows the depth of that. So here are some more kind of specific photos. Here is this window right here, which you can't really tell. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to get photos in this back courtyard. This window has a leaded glass pattern, whereas the window immediately next to it are full height tilt turn windows. And this is the 14th floor. Then you come down here to the 10th floor where you can see the leaded glass pattern, and it also has the same leaded glass pattern on the window immediately next to it. This is the same photo of that 10th floor window, so you can see the pattern, and I have some interior shots of that. Then we come down here and we see the 6th floor and the 5th floor. You can see it on the adjacent window that there on the 6th floor, there is a leaded glass pattern, but unfortunately the photo cut off, so we weren't able to see the 5th floor's leaded glass pattern. But in just looking at it from here, you can see that there's a diamond pattern, and this is more of a somewhat trapezoidal pattern on the leaded glass inserts. So now here are a couple of different photos. This is the existing 6th floor, which is really inconsequential, or the existing 15th floor, which is really inconsequential because these are replacement windows that are full height. But then we move on to the 10th floor and you can see the diamond pattern with the square shapes in between. So this was one of the different leaded glass configurations. And we move down to the 6th floor where you can see more of that trapezoidal shaped leaded glass insert. And then this is a photo of the lobby or the ground floor. This dimension here, this 16 feet, is from the face of the building to the adjacent building. So that is the depth of that rear courtyard. What the building actually did was they put in a living wall to help obscure that and make it more presentable. Additionally, they also put the same type of casement insert with the leaded glass on the inside to help obscure that view of the small courtyard. And then, to go back to the angled windows that are adjacent to the tripartite casement windows. Here's the ground floor. You can clearly see there's the double hung window, and you've got the leaded glass casement set inside of that double hung window. The 3rd floor, is actually the casement itself. They have removed the existing or historic double hung window. The 5th floor, which is right here, that actually is, the 5th floor, which is here. You can't really see it from this angle, but they have put the casement inside of the double hung window, similar to what they did on the ground floor in the lobby. And then you've got the 6th floor where they've actually replaced the glazing within the existing double hung window. Now here's the 14th floor where the tripartite window next to this opening, was changed so that it was three full height tilt turn windows, and you can see yet again, a different leaded glass glazing configuration. So now, I thought this would be more helpful to see. This is the ground floor of the lobby from the outside. Note that this is not a part of the master plan. This is excluded, but it gives you an idea of what the historic window looked like. This tripart. Well, this is not a tripartite casement because it's a pair of operable sash flanked by two fixed units. But you can see that when the window is open and swung out, it is a clear 2 wide, 3 high grid configuration. And you can see that there is the leaded glass insert. Now, this decorative piece right here is actually a security door for the lobby, and that's set about 7 or 8 feet in from the window. So that has no bearing on what the window is itself. And then we move on to some of the interior photos of the ground floor. Again, you can see that this casement was added on the inside of the outswing historic casements after the fact. And it's my belief and my team's belief that it was done so to block the view of the narrow courtyard and the building on the other side of the courtyard. Now we move on to what it is that we're proposing. In order to keep uniformity and to go back to the historic condition, we are proposing a tripartite casement window, similar to what is historic, which this is the 4th floor, or yes, this is the 4th floor. And this is what we believe is the historic condition. And so again, to sum up, the proposed plan is to revert back to the historic condition by including tripartite casement windows in the historically accurate grid configurations. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. So again, here we've got the current building photo as well as the 1940s tax photo to give you kind of a bigger view.
Great. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Right. So if any questions, please, feel free to add.
Okay, we do. Commissioner Goldblum, please go ahead.
All right. Thank you for the exhaustive presentation. Very, very thorough. The question is, so clearly you're not afraid of doing casements. Why do you propose modifying the historic condition on the front facade base floors 2 and 3? Is it because you mentioned consistency, but why is that a principle that should guide you?
So a casement of that size is much more difficult to operate than a casement of the sizes that we're seeing in the back of the building. The masonry opening is much bigger, and by putting a larger casement there, you run the risk of damage to the opening, damage to the window, water infiltration, and problems that the building would then have to deal with.
So you're saying from a functional perspective, the 2nd and 3rd floor windows would be hard to operate or hard to install properly if they were casements, but not if they were double hungs?
No, it's just the 2nd floor because currently historically, the 3rd floor are double hung windows.
With the fake mullion in the middle.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Right, and just to be clear, there are no historic windows left on the 2nd or 3rd floors, correct?
Not a single one.
Okay. All right. Yes, Commissioner Lutfi, please go ahead.
So what is the material of these windows going to be?
We're proposing aluminum windows for the for all double hung windows, and then in the back there'll be a pultruded fiberglass.
And did you consider aluminum clad wood?
That is certainly an option. With the proposal, The sight lines of an aluminum clad wood will match with our aluminum double hung that we're proposing.
So Commissioner Lutfi, the aluminum material is allowable at staff level. So all of the windows in the middle of the building that are being approved at staff level are to be aluminum, and that meets the rules.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Thank you.
And you're also additionally, you're going to get the same aesthetic with an aluminum clad wood window as you would with an aluminum window.
Now I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, other questions? All right, I don't see any other questions at this time, so let's move to public testimony. If you're in the meeting and would like to speak on this item, please raise your virtual hand so we can identify you, and I'll turn it over to Gregory Kala to take us through the testimony.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We received a couple of sign-ons beforehand, so I'll be moving through those first. The first of which is Jeremy Woodoff from VSNY. So Jeremy, I'll be promoting you to panelist now. And if you could please unmute your line and state your name for the record, you will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you. Jeremy, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jeremy Woodoff speaking for the Victorian Society, New York. In general, the Victorian Society supports this proposal, which will restore the consistency and historic configuration of windows in this building. There are no dimension details provided, and our support depends on the details and dimensions of brick moldings, sash members, and muntins being close matches for the historic condition. It also depends on retention of the historic interior leaded glass casements, even if some of them may not be original. These are called out in the presentation materials without an indication of their disposition. We disagree, however, with the approach to the second floor windows. As always, we urge respecting the original architect's design, which was to use casement windows with transoms within the more elaborate masonry enfranements of the second floor. This would then extend to providing the third floor windows with wide center muntins to simulate the width of the second floor casement's vertical meeting rails, thus maintaining consistency within the building's limestone base. These kinds of unexpected and special details make historic buildings interesting, and they should be restored as part of the master plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Jeremy. And the next speaker will be a representative from Friends of Upper East Side. So I'll be promoting you to panelist now. And if you could please just state your name for the record and unmute your line, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Rachel Levy for Friends of the Upper East Side. Friends has long been an advocate for window master plans. We applaud the thorough historic research that went into this project and appreciate the applicant's initiative to propose a consistently applied master plan for the windows of this neo-Renaissance apartment building. Friends Preservation Committee would have wished to see the historic casement windows on the second floor and the 8/8 and 4/4 double hung with a wider central muntin on the third floor incorporated into the master plan. Nonetheless, we appreciate the proposal for multi-light sashes. So many of the Park Avenue buildings have already lost this layer of architectural detail by replacing their historic windows with single pane glazing in the name of uniformity. It would be most unfortunate to include 800 Park in this list. Finally, while not original to the building, we believe the leaded historic windows at the courtyard are truly special. Their configuration is very similar to the original and proposed casement windows, and their different patterns do not create a hodgepodge of openings. Instead, they complement the unique character of this building. We ask the applicant to include a provision on the master plan that allows for these windows to be retained and replaced in kind. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rachel. And I'm looking through now to see if we have any further hands raised. It does not appear as though there are. So I will just note for the record that we also received a resolution from Manhattan Community Board 8, and they recommend denial.
Thank you. Thank you much, Gregory. So I'd like to turn back to the applicant and ask if you'd like to respond to the comments we've heard.
So in regards to the second floor and the third floor, again, the reason that we proposed the windows that we did, many of the windows in that limestone podium are currently 6/6 or 8/8 double hung windows. It would take a very long time to restore that to the historic nature. We would be doing away with all of the full single light tilt turn windows. So that was again the reason that we decided to go with uniformity, because they would then match all of the windows above on the floors above. And in terms of the rear windows, it's our belief, and you know, in looking at this and looking at this and looking at this, it really appears that a lot of these windows had the glazing changed so that they could obstruct the view of the building that is right next to them 16 feet away. It is not a very pleasant sight to look at. So by sprucing it up and putting in leaded glass, it helps to diminish what you're looking at and make, you know, draw your eyes to the interior of the apartment as opposed to what's going on outside.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? All right, I'm going to send you all requests to unmute so that we can move to our discussion. All right, Commissioner Chapin, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. And on the front facade, all of the windows in the middle of the building are being replaced with new multi-light aluminum windows, which meet our rules and are being approved at staff level. So the windows before us are at the second and third floor and at the very top floor. And then the windows they're replacing the leaded glass windows at the rear courtyard. And so there are no historic windows left at the second and third floors. The proposal is to do a multi-light window that would relate to and match the windows above in lieu of returning to the casement and paired double hung configurations. And then at the upper floors, they are proposing to return the historic configuration as best as they can tell, understanding that and believing that the windows were originally double hung because of the casings that once accommodated the chains. And then at the rear facade, there are some windows that have had leaded glass inserts, and the proposal is to replace those. Those are in a 16-foot deep courtyard facing another building and are random in their style and type. So they do seem to not have been part of a design campaign, but individually done on an individual basis. So one thing I would say, it's kind of interesting, usually when we are looking at proposals for master plans for buildings of this age and type and style, it's to the applicant is seeking a 1/1 double hung window to achieve some uniformity. In this case, they're proposing multi-light windows. And I think, you know, often our discussions consider whether the building is robust enough or that its style is represented enough through its materials and details to determine whether the original configuration is critical for that building style. And often when we do not support the 1/1, we do sometimes often suggest that the applicant either, if not go back to the original window, go back to something in keeping with the age and style of the building and consistent with the texture and quality of a multi-light window. So I think here we're starting out at that place, not starting out with a 1/1, but starting out with something that is consistent with the age and style of the building and provides the same level of articulation and texture. So I think that's an interesting place for us to start today. So we'll start our conversation. Commissioner Shamir Barron, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I think for the most part, what's being proposed is acceptable, but I have to take exception with the second floor. I understand that there's a, that there are no existing historic condition windows. But I think that making them double hung, just because there are a couple of double hung windows that remain or that are there, if I'm understanding it, seems not to be a strong enough argument. I actually agree with testimony that the second floor windows should potentially be casement, or I don't know, I'm not sure what, but they are clearly distinct from the other windows on the third floor and beyond, and so I think need to be reconsidered. The windows on the, and replacing and doing whatever they've proposed with the actual leaded material on the courtyard side, on the other side, seems reasonable to me, and I understand the motivations there. But again, I do think that the second floor main windows need to be reconsidered. I'd love to hear what others have to say.
Thank you. Commissioner Chapin?
Well, I agree in general. I think that the proposal is appropriate. I mean, I think that it, that the replacement that they're proposing in general sounds appropriate. And I don't think that the leaded glass windows are important. So I think that's where I'm at on this one.
Okay. Commissioner Goldblum?
I agree. I agree with what Adi was saying about the second floor windows. I think especially important are the windows that have the headers over them, decorative headers. I think the three center windows facing 74th Street are less urgent for me because they're clearly kind of meant to be kind of field windows, but the ones with the headers over them are clearly meant to be unique standout windows. So I would urge them to consider modifying those.
Okay. Commissioner Devonshire?
Yeah, I agree with Adi's discussion about this.
Okay, all right, and Commissioner Goldblum had just commented on the three unhooded windows in the center on the second floor of the short facade. And do you agree with him that those could be the double hung?
I do.
Okay. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, no disagreement there.
Okay. Commissioner Bland?
I'm in the same place.
Commissioner Lutfi?
I think this is an anomaly for us. As you said, we're usually a window, a building has like almost completely changed all of their windows to 1/1. And there has been a tremendous amount of consistency in this building. I appreciate the fact that the building really wants to have some consistency, and I can accept the multi-lights on all of the windows on the facade, and I am okay with the casements on the courtyard.
Okay, so you're okay with it as presented?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Commissioner Jefferson?
I agree with most of the proposition. I do think this, I agree with the commissioners on the second floor on Park Avenue and on 73rd Street, I think. So I agree with the second floor should be casement windows, and the rest of the proposition I can accept.
Okay. Commissioner Gustafson?
Yeah, I agree with the Shamir Baron principle with the Goldblum codicil.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Shamir Baron, do you have any thoughts about those three windows in the center on the short facade? And would you be comfortable with those as double hungs, since they don't have the large pediment or hoods on top?
Right. I mean, I'm looking at T1 as we are, and the original did not have those as defined differently in terms of the configuration of the window. And I understand the logic of maybe excluding those if the idea is to kind of, I don't know, to save something. I'm not sure why we would exclude them. I mean, is it about cost that we might make that we might advise that those 3 be double hung? I mean, I'm not really sure why.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that I think a double hung window is not, my personal feeling here is that it's not inappropriate on a building of this age and style. But I do hear many commissioners say that because these windows on the second floor, by virtue of their taller height and their ornamented hoods, are distinct. And so a configuration that matches the historic configuration would be appropriate in those windows. And then some have said that because the other 3 windows are not as distinct architecturally, that they could match the other windows that don't have decorative ornament around the lintels and
no, I understood that. So were you going to say something else?
So I think that the question is, for me, is the 6/6 or 8/8 double hung configuration inappropriate? And for me, it's not inappropriate. And so I think, along with the Commissioner Goldblum's thought, that the window openings that relate to the window openings on the upper floors could be the same window type, and that would be an appropriate combination. Whereas the windows with the hoods are clearly distinct, and those could have a different window type that matches the historic casement operation.
Yeah, I just don't know. I understand that. I just don't know why depart from the historic condition other than to sort of compromise. But and I also think that it's not so much the configuration that's the issue. It's the fact that this is sort of like it's recalling a sort of a parlor floor, almost, where it's the function of the door, of a kind of door windows, French door-ish, that's what's important here, I think. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I think, I don't know that we have to think of anything that deviates from the historic condition as something we have to just, like, that has to be a compromise, because I think we do that all the time. If it matched the historic condition, it would be approved at staff level. So we often find changes that don't match the historic condition to be appropriate. So I don't know that we have to think of it as a compromise, but I understand that, I think for you, the second floor is an important floor to have consistent in this unique configuration. So I think that you would not be comfortable reading a motion that allowed for some flexibility at these unadorned windows. And that's where I was trying to get at.
Right.
Okay. So I think, yeah. Michael?
Can I make another suggestion?
Yes.
That might bridge the gap. They could do tilt and turns that had the wide center mullion for all of them. And I think that if I were a co-operator and I had that apartment on the second floor, I might not want the double hungs in my dining room right next to the casements. So it might be easier to do tilt and turns, which I think would avoid the applicant's statement about difficulty in waterproofing and would give you the same appearance. Just throwing that out there as another option.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let me see. I do think, Commissioner Goldblum, Devonshire, Gustafson, I think Commissioner Chen, and then all would support the combination, and Commissioner Chapin and Commissioner Lutfi supported it as is. So I think we might have enough to vote it with that combination. If they want to do the casements, they can, because that would be matching the historic condition. But we'll make a motion to approve with modifications that the ornamented windows be casements, and if they want to do the others in casements, they certainly can do that. So why don't I go ahead and make that motion? All right, in the matter of, oops, let me just get back to it. Docket number 22-09485, 800 Park Avenue in the Upper East Side Historic District, a neo-Renaissance style apartment building designed by Electus D. Litchfield and Pliny Rogers and built in 1925. This is an application to establish a master plan governing the future installation of windows. And I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Upper East Side Historic District. Staff commission, I further note that a 1986 master plan was approved under a certificate of appropriateness that called for wood multi-light windows at the first floors and metal multi-light double hung windows at the upper floors, and that several authorizations to proceed have been issued over the years for these windows to date. So that is another point, is that we did approve, as far as we can tell, double hung windows at this level in 1986. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the proposed windows at the primary facades will match the historic windows in terms of profiles and finish, that advancements in technology since the original master plan called for wood replacement windows at the building base have significantly improved how closely aluminum windows can match or recall the details and finish of historic wood windows. Therefore, the use of metal at the lower floor windows instead of the wood required by the earlier master plan for the first floor will not call undue attention to material or detract from the building base. I actually think, though, the first floor is being reviewed at staff level anyway. That except for the windows at the second, third, and top floors, all of the proposed windows at the primary facades will match the historic windows in terms of operation, configuration, and details. That the proposed windows at the second, third, and top floors at the primary facades will match the historic windows throughout the remainder of the facades in terms of operation and details. That the proposed top floor windows matching some of the windows which were present in the early 20th century at this floor likely will match the original windows in terms of configuration. That the proposed multi-light double hung windows at the third floors will not replace any extant historic windows and will be consistent with the original windows in terms of their compatibility with the fenestration pattern at the first and upper floors. That the overall fenestration pattern at the primary facades will be consistent with the fenestration pattern found at apartment buildings of this age and style, as well as with another building of similar age designed by the same architect. That the leaded glass windows are only present at a limited number of windows at secondary courtyard facades, almost all of which are not visible from a public thoroughfare and do not form a uniform pattern between floors and were likely added over time. That the leaded glass windows are not unique, representative of exceptional craftsmanship or part of a significant redesign of these facades. And that the establishment of the new master plan will support the uniformity of the building's fenestration over time. However, I recommend that the applicant work with the staff to revise the configuration at the second floor hooded windows to better match the historic configuration. Okay, Commissioner Goldblum, would you second that motion?
Second.
Thank you. Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Shamir Barron,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Devonshire,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Gustafson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
10 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, so that's approved with that modification. And again, if they wish to match the historic configuration at the windows without the hoods, they certainly can do so at staff level. And we'll now move to the next item.
All right, the next item is public hearing item number 6, LPC 22-10814, application for certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, block 5095, lot 28, 86 Marlborough Road in the Ditmas Park Historic District. This is a colonial revival style freestanding house designed by Bertram P. Wiltberger and built in 1899. Application is to install solar panels.
Okay, Commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing and the staff will be taking you through the presentation. So Brian, if you'll just click on your screen, please state your name for the record. You may begin.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. Brian Blazak, Preservation Staff. The subject property is 86 Marlborough Road. Excuse me. So this proposal is to install a solar panel array at the rear west-facing pitched roof, both at the main roof and at the setback roof. This slide locates the property within the Ditmas Park Historic District. And this section on the top left here shows that the array will have a low profile and will be mounted parallel to the pitch of the roof. These details show the panels will be black on black down here on the lower left and have a skirt to hide equipment underneath the panels in line with other commission-approved visible solar panel arrays. The rear elevation shows the layout of the solar panel arrays at the rear roofs. A gray painted conduit will run the length of the rear facade to the location of the AC disconnect at the first floor here. And just going back one, the front elevation shows there will be no solar panels visible over the primary facades. Again, and none on either of the side facades either. This sightline section shows again that there will be no visibility over the primary facade. And most importantly, this shows where we're actually going to see this from. So the red dots on this map indicate locations where you are going to be able to see the locations of the solar panels. The first red dot up here on Church Avenue shows that there will be visibility looking from the south, as well here on Rugby Road, looking east. That'll be the rear facade. There's no visibility from any of the other locations as shown in green. And lastly, just some enlarged views of those two areas where you are going to see visibility. And you can see that the proposed arrays are shown rendered in black here and in here. So the applicants are here to answer any additional questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. All right, commissioners, do we have any questions on this item? Okay, I don't see any questions. Let's move to public testimony. If you're in the meeting and would like to speak on this item, please raise your virtual hand so we can identify you, and I'll turn it over to Gregory Collot to take us through the testimony.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We received one sign up in advance, and that was Jeremy Woodoff. So Jeremy, I will be promoting you to panelist now. So if you could please state your name for the record and unmute your line, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jeremy Woodoff, speaking for the Victorian Society, New York. The VSNY supports the applicant's proposal to install solar panels on the west-facing rear roofs of 86 Marlborough Road. We also support the installation of a control panel and conduit on the west-facing rear elevation. These changes, as shown on the presentation drawings, will not be seen in conjunction with the primary facade. Where they are visible, it will be from a distance, looking between adjacent buildings, minimizing their impact on the district. However, one drawing, A204, appears to show solar panels installed on the north-facing side roof. Any panels in this location will, we think, be visible in conjunction with the primary facade. We have no way of determining if this is an afterthought or an error on the drawings, or possibly that we have misread the drawings. The applicant we would request the applicant to clarify this discrepancy and revise the drawings as necessary. Further, the VSNY would recommend denial of solar panels on the side roof, as apparently shown on A204, where they would be visible in the context of the street facade. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Jeremy. And I'm seeing if there are any other hands raised. There do not appear to be. So I will just note for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 14 has waived their right to comment on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Brian, is your applicant here? I wonder if the applicant would like to respond to the testimony.
They are, and I can maybe clarify quickly as well that I do know that there was an updated set that was set yesterday that might not have made it into this presentation, but they did revise to remove that from the set as well. But Omar, if you want to clarify any further, you may.
Hello, everyone. My name is Omar Durazo. I'm the private design permitting director at Unisolar. First, thank you for reviewing this project. We appreciate it. Actually, yes, we already make an update on that plan set. We sent it late yesterday, but we already removed those. That wasn't just an error. So
Okay.
Brian, he has the right ones right now in his hand.
Okay, thank you. All right, commissioners, do we have any questions? Final questions? Okay. I'm going to start to send you requests so that we can unmute and move to our discussion. All right, Commissioner Bland, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
We have like a nonprofit organization. We have our own.
Okay, Commissioner Bland, can you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Lutfi, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed, and we have actually recently seen a number of applications for solar panels on pitched roofs of freestanding houses that end up being incidentally visible. And I think we have, as long as the profile, the shape of the panels and their installation be tight to the roof, we have found that it doesn't change the roof profile. And in fact, many commissioners have sort of embraced the visibility of solar panels on this type of building. So we'll have a discussion here, and the applicant has clarified that there was an error in the drawing, and that the only panels that are being shown are the ones that Brian has walked us through today. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Devonshire, would you like to start this one?
I think this is fully appropriate and I can approve it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chen?
Likewise here.
Okay, Commissioner Bland?
Yes, with rooftop additions, it's not that you can see it, it's what you see and is it appropriate? And I think when these panels are flat to the roof, they are generally going to be much more acceptable than if they're not, and this is flat to the roof. You can see them, the edges, I think, from the front, as it was noted in testimony, but I don't find that that's objectionable either. So I think this is approvable. And as you indicated, maybe it's good to see these from time to time if they are done so well, because they can be very disruptive when they're not applied right.
Right, thank you. Commissioner Lutfi?
Yes, I think this is appropriate, and I want to thank the applicant, even if he got it in a little late, for actually making it very easy for us, because they're confined to the back and the profiles are very slim, so that the plane of the roof stays the same. And now it's about renewable energy, which is fantastic.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Jefferson.
Appropriate.
Okay. Commissioner Gustafson.
Yeah, I agree. I would also note that this particular slide is really a terrific way to represent visibility in a case like this. And I would hope our staff would encourage applicants to present this way.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Shamir Barron.
I think it's appropriate.
Commissioner Chapin. Oh, sorry, she's gone. Commissioner Goldblum.
Agreed, appropriate.
Okay, All right, so I think we all agree on this one. Commissioner Devonshire, would you read the motion?
Sure. In the matter of 86 Marlborough Road in the Ditmas Park Historic District, colonial Bible style freestanding house designed by Bertram Wiltberger and built in 1899, an application to install solar panels. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features of the roof, which is currently covered with modern asphalt shingles. That the solar panels will be placed on the rear slope of the roof and will only be seen through a gap in the streetscape in conjunction with the rear facade of this building and adjacent buildings in the foreground. That the solar panels will have a low profile and will be mounted parallel to the pitch of the roof, thereby maintaining the roof plane. That the dark uniform appearance of the solar panels and framing elements will have a neutral presence on the roof. That the installation of the solar panels will be reversible in the long term and will clearly be visually differentiated as modern renewable energy installation. And the proposed work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building and the Ditmas Park Historic District.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
Thank you. All right. And Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Shamir Barron,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Devonshire,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Gustafson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
With 9 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, that's approved. Thank you. And we'll move to the next item.
The next item is public hearing item number 7, LPC 22-07187, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, block 2563, lot 37, 144 Greenpoint Avenue in the Greenpoint Historic District. This is an altered commercial building originally designed by Wilson and Nassau and built in 1898. The application is to substantially demolish the building and construct a new building.
Okay, commissioners, most of the applicants have entered the hearing. I do not see the applicant who is to control the slides. So I will give it to Ray Doval instead. Ray, if you will unmute yourself, I will give you control of the presentation.
Okay.
Okay. If you will just, if you'll just click on your screen on the presentation. Perfect. You now have control and you can advance the slides using your arrow keys or your mouse.
Okay.
Great. Whoever needs to start, please state your name for the record and you may begin.
Ray Dovell here for the applicant. Frank Cheney, would you like to kick this off in broad terms?
Yeah, just briefly. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Frank Cheney. I'm a zoning and land use attorney with Rosenberg and Estes, representing the owners of 144 Greenpoint. I'm joined by Jeremy and Philip Katz, representing the owners, and of course Ray and Leonard Leung of Plattfire, Dovell and White, who are the architects for the project. I'm just going to be very brief. Let me just start by noting that while we recognize that the proposal tends to present as a new building and is described as such in today's agenda, because nearly all of the floor area and perimeter walls of the existing building will be retained as a technical matter per the zoning resolution and the building code. It's an enlargement, not a demolition and ground up new construction. In terms of zoning, very briefly, the building is in a C43A contextual zoning district that allows buildings up to a maximum height of 70 feet and a maximum floor area ratio of 3.0. However, in every respect, the proposal will have less than the permitted maximums. It will have a street wall height 15 feet lower than permitted, a building height 10 feet lower, 2,000 square feet less floor area than permitted, and the 2.76 FAR will be less than the maximum 3.0. With that, to quote Forrest Gump, that's all I have to say about that. I will now hand off to Jeremy Katz, who I think would like to say a few words on behalf of the owners before turning things back over to Ray for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Yes, good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Jeremy Katz. I'm a partner at MacArthur Holdings, owner of 144 Greenpoint Avenue. Our organization has experience building, owning, and operating property. We've completed ground-up projects as well as renovations of existing buildings throughout the boroughs. This project presents an exciting opportunity for us because it's a chance to breathe new life into this building. 144 Greenpoint Avenue is located in the heart of this neighborhood, and it has sat vacant and out of service for far too long. We'd like to solidify its future as an important addition to the area. We believe retail and office space, as we are aiming to create with our proposed development program, is a need in this location, particularly to keep pace with the growth of new residential units to this district. Our objective with this project is to create a property that can provide quality spaces commensurate with the evolving needs of Brooklyn businesses of today and the future. For prospective Brooklyn office tenants in a post-pandemic world, our team recognizes that access to outdoor space has become a significant sought-after amenity. The proposed passive outdoor spaces of this project are one element that we feel offers a compelling opportunity for businesses to bring their employees back to work. And with that, I will pass this over to our architects, Ray Dovell and Leonard Leung at PVDW for the presentation.
Thank you, Jeremy. Okay, I'll begin. This is the photograph of the existing building in its current condition. It is a reskinning of two older buildings. There were two distinct buildings there, which were combined at some point into a single tax lot, single zoning lot. The building to the left was 2 stories. The building to the right was a single story. The current condition of the building is it is a clad over, largely turning a blind eye to the street, composed of granite tile, formed anodized sheet metal, stucco, and gray tinted glass where there is glass, which is only on the lower level to the right building at the entry. The building was previously, it's now empty, catering hall, cabaret nightclub establishment. I don't know how you would characterize its architecture other than to say maybe casino revival style or something like that. But, you know, that said, we'll go on. Oops. Here it is. To the left is the zoning map, showing in pink, showing where we are located, close to the corner of Greenpoint and Manhattan Avenues, right at I would say right at kind of the heart of the commercial area of the Greenpoint Historic District. And then to the right, you see where we are illustrated in pink, right close to the corner. Part of the building is within 100 feet of the corner, so the coverage issues change slightly there, which I'll explain. And here it is. Here's the district map to the left in pink again, showing our building. It's right at the edge, and then a tax map photo from 1980 showing an earlier iteration of the establishment, but still it's mostly blank facade with some ornamentation. Here are some historic photographs of the 2 existing buildings, which were at this time two distinct buildings. The larger building was a fairly standard 2-story cast iron and metal corniced structure with a metal facade on it. The 1-story building to the right, hard to see in these photographs, but it did have a cornice of some sort, which was subsequently stripped off. The photo to the top right shows the tax photo from 1940, showing that the cornice was still intact at that time. There was some projecting signage from the building, and then the small cornice on the 1-story portion of the building. By 1950, the lower left, you can see that the cornice had been stripped off, as a lot of the ornament or all of the architectural ornamentation at the base of the building, leaving just the 2nd-story elements intact, cast iron elements intact. The lower 1-story building, I think there is really nothing left of it except extruded aluminum storefront and a brick parapet wall. So by 1950, that was the condition. And then 73, you can see what happened. The tax lots, zoning lots were joined. and it becomes one single establishment. And this is how it evolved over time. The top left shows it a fairly flat facade with some windows looking out, with not sure what it was clad with, but probably some sort of a stone tile panel. By 26, it had been covered. The windows had been covered, and there was some other arched ornamentation on the lower building, which sticks up quite. It's quite a tall extension over the existing one-story roof. The 2015 iteration shows it largely as it is today. It's a brown granite 1x1 granite tile with sheet metal aluminum surrounds, and then some gold applique on the one-story building, gold aluminum applique over a stucco facade. The arches are again clad in anodized sheet metal. The base of the building is tinted glass, and at some point some planters extending out over the lot line were added. Here are some details of the existing conditions. It's been treated fairly roughly over the last few years simply because of its vacancy. There's a lot of graffiti on it now, but you can see what the condition is. The planters are concrete with exposed aggregate, pebble aggregate, and then there was a canopy that extends out over the main entrance, which has plastic skylights in it. What we did in thinking about the design of this building is we wanted to analyze the commercial streets, meaning Greenpoint and Manhattan Avenue. So what we have done is we've coded them. Our building again is in pink. The buildings that are in yellow are 100% commercial buildings. The buildings that are turquoise in color are mixed, usually with the ground floor being retail or commercial, with residential above. So this kind of shows you the texture of the commercial avenues, arteries that go through the district. And then here, we think these are really remarkable images because it shows this consistency of the very handsome, usually 4-story brick buildings with the commercial base below. Some of the times the brick goes to the base, but often it does not in the commercial buildings. It's cast iron or metal or some other metal with larger panels of glass going across the front. Generally, there's a nice series of cornices. Sometimes the cornices have been stripped off. The anomalies occur where at the intersections of the commercial streets where it becomes a little more random. You can see at the top left where 144 Greenpoint is illustrated in red text, that the buildings get to be a little jumpy. Some of them are taller, some of them are lower, some of them single-story taxpayers, single-story bank buildings. Our site, Greenpoint, looking north, it's a little more consistent with the cornice heights, but it's in general a very handsome street line. Manhattan Avenue is a little more disrupted in terms of heights of buildings, which in a way is kind of characteristic of these commercial intersections. On Manhattan Avenue, there's a very handsome bank building, and then you have a block of residential buildings, and then again some one-story taxpayers tucked in. Towards the end of the street, where it intersects with Greenpoint, there's a very handsome Art Deco building. And then looking south on Manhattan, you see the very handsome church building, which is really focal point of the neighborhood. Blocks of very handsome brick mixed use buildings, and again some broken like broken teeth. Here's our building in the district. It's right at the edge of the district, close to the corner. Portion of it is within 100 feet of the corner. And it is the overall site is 80 feet, it's roughly 80 feet wide across the street. we found this photograph. This is the building at the corner of Manhattan and Greenpoint. We found an original photograph from 1906, and you can see the art, you can see the aspirations of this district. This is not an unsophisticated piece of architecture in the district. It's got a remarkable cornice, pentamented cornice, large piers going down to the ground, but the reading is a base with 2 stories above. There's lots of depth of expression, recessed spandrels, piers going up, and then a very pronounced cornice. And then unfortunately that building has been stripped over the years, and to the right you see what it looks like now. Some of the cast iron remains. You can still see the recessed spandrels. Unfortunately, there was a kind of a diluted deco storefront added at some point, which doesn't improve its appearance, but you can see originally the sophistication of this building. So this was something we looked at carefully because we are a commercial building, and there are a few larger. This is one of the few larger commercial buildings in the district. It's not 20 feet wide, it's larger. And this next image is just an extremely handsome building at the other end of the street. This was originally of Greenpoint Avenue. This was originally a commercial building, but it's a very sophisticated piece of architecture. It's, the large arches, the recessed spandrel between the 2nd and 3rd floors, the use of material stone at the base, brick, and then terracotta elements with the projecting metal cornice. It's largely intact, fortunately, and it has been converted to residential use on the upper floors. Again, a very handsome building. The other existing example, it's a corner building, 2 and 3 stories in height, which has obviously been clad over, but still shows the significance of these commercial buildings in the district. They're more pronounced. This one is a 3-story building with a little cupola at the top. It's a quirky building, but it's certainly I think it's beloved in the neighborhood, and it seems to be very well used, but it is one of the larger commercial buildings in the district. Then these are the other commercial buildings that you see. There are lots of single-story taxpayers, but there are a couple notable examples. At 140 Greenpoint at the top, it's an extremely handsome limestone bank building, which is generally in extremely good shape and a really contributing building. We looked at this building and its coloration for design going forward. The other one is 185 Manhattan Avenue, which is a 2-story with mezzanine deco-inspired bank building, which is kind of so these exist all over of New York and the country. They're handsome, they're heavily built, unobtrusive, but not, maybe speaking the same language of the rest of the district. The balance are simply 1-story taxpayers. And then this is a project that was recently approved by the Landmarks Commission. It is a residential building, but I wanted to point out a couple things that we think are important about the approach that was taken here. The basic module in Greenpoint is a 20-foot module with 3 bays. This one is 3 stories, not 4, so it's slightly lower in height. But what the architect did is acknowledge that with a slightly wider pier, and then with a reveal, breaking that module down. In our opinion, it might have been a little bit stronger, but then it acknowledges the module of the street, and it's subdued. I think it's a handsome addition with a small partial 4th floor. I'm going to go through the plans of what we're proposing very quickly. To the left, existing conditions; to the right, proposed. The existing building had cabaret space down below, or dance floors down below. What we're proposing is a couple of commercial spaces down below, with the rest being back of house. Existing 1st floor to the left, which was simply 2 large bar areas and a commercial kitchen at the floor, with these projecting planters and canopy out in front, which are kind of a rather odd addition to the building. What we're proposing is to go back to the bay system that we talked about, which is a 20-foot module. Again, the building is 80 feet, so we have a 20-foot module divided, 80 feet divided into 4 separate bays, one of which is the entry that you see to the left, which is composed of two required a stair coming up from the basement and a stair coming down from above, a single elevator, a toilet room, and a very small lobby. Not knowing who will ultimately rent, it has been designed so that 3 tenants could come in, 2 tenants, or 1 tenant. So that again is up for grabs, the actual tenancy. At one point, a grocery store was interested, which would have been a wonderful addition, but they have backed out. So we are back to potential spaces. To the left is the existing upper, which shows the 2nd floor, which was used as a dance floor. It's a column-free space with a stair that projected over the line to the west, and you can see the projecting arches shown there as well. What we're proposing is a commercial floor. Hopefully it'll be 1 tenant, but in the event that it's smaller tenancy, it's designed so that it can be divided into smaller spaces, or 2 or 3 or what have you, with a stair on the west side and toilet rooms on the right side with a stair. That slight diagonal room, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but the slight diagonal line here is within 100 feet. This portion is within 100 feet of the corner. So it was an opportune place to put an egress stair that could serve all floors. Then above that, then the existing 3rd floor, you can see these 2 darker lines here, actually 3. These are trusses that held up enabled the dance floor to exist uninterrupted with columns. So the columns were cut and trusses were placed over top, and the ceiling was hung from it. So those trusses will be removed. We will then fill out that floor, leaving the existing structure in place to the west, so that we pick up the additional floor area to the west. The stair will extend through, the elevator will extend through. I would like to point out that this is a commercial building, normally requiring a 20-foot rear yard. But because it backs up to residential space, it's a 30-foot rear yard. So all of the new construction complies with zoning and is set back 30 feet from the lot line. And sorry, I keep jumping ahead. Okay, so then we have a very small, now to the left, you see a very small 4th floor set way back on the 3 sides with stair and elevator extending up. On the roof of that partial 4th floor, there's some mechanical units. Here are the sections existing and proposed. You can see on the existing section, you can see the extent of the arches, that arch facade that extends above. We're using a machine room less elevator to try to keep the height down on our building. And again, you see the floors, the floor to floors are 14 feet. The 2nd and 3rd floors are 14 feet, and that's fairly standard for commercial space because mechanical distribution is horizontal rather than vertical. And then the small 4th floor addition at the top. Here's a sight line diagram across Greenpoint Avenue, showing that we have an extended cornice. You will see a small piece of the 4th floor, but not much. It will be slightly more prominent from the angled perspectives, which we'll show you shortly. So here's the top is existing, which you see the old Polonaise, and then below you see our new building in context. What we tried to create here was a building which was very respectful to the module of the street, which is the 20-foot module, which was also the module of the older existing building, broken into 3 bays, with larger expanses of glass due to the commercial nature. It is a brick piers with recessed brick spandrels, a steel base with some cast stone inserts. And here you can see from across the street, you can slightly see the fourth floor. So it's not something that is out of scale. It does, in fact, it's lower than a lot of buildings in the district. And we think tries to relate to the existing residential context, as well as I would say the more forward-looking architectural expressions of the commercial buildings. And here you see the building from the west looking east. And what was very important was to try to relate to the other commercial buildings, but not forget the heights and proportions of the existing residential buildings. So what we have are larger brick piers every 20 feet, divided by smaller brick piers with recessed spandrels, making it a two-part vertical composition, which you would expect in a commercial building in the district. A steel base going across, all the way across, with 4 equal bays, the one difference being the entry, which is still 20 feet, but treated differently, the entry to the building. And then larger glass windows above, three-part windows. We believe what we wanted to do here was to capture the spirit of this district, but to do it in a modern idiom. We did not think that simply borrowing historic pieces is really needed or appropriate to this in a way that relates to the district. We've also tried on the side elevations to introduce some glass where we can. This has to be fire-rated glass, but because of the core, there is not much opportunity for it, but we put it in where we could. And here you see on the west, here you see the elevator overrun. You see the stair coming up is minimized as much as possible, and then the corner of the partial fourth floor. Again, stucco panels with reveals, some metal trim going through to try to give it some interest rather than simply a stucco facade. A large brick pier returning back. We chose the brick color in definite relation to the bank building. We felt that needed to be respected. That's a very handsome piece of architecture, and we wanted not to contrast using a red brick, which was more associated with the residential architecture, but to do everything in a modern idiom, respecting the depth of expression. And here you see a slightly more forward view of it from the east. Again, the small portion of the partial fourth floor, the extending cornice, a little more glass on the side we were able to achieve, but the large brick piers were turning back, and then a steel base with cast stone inserts around the retail entrances. We have very minimally projecting canopies for the retail entrances. We've got some options for how that signage is placed, and then a slightly deeper canopy for the main building entry, and a slightly different treatment of the cast stone portion of the surround. And here's what it looks like in more in the street, in granular streetscape. Large 9-foot doors with 9-foot pieces of glass, but trying to open it up to the streetscape, making the retail units a little more desirable, but organizing them in a way that hopefully can be retained over time. What happens with smaller retail establishments is they tend to get whacked up in ways which are really unfortunate and don't respect the overall composition. So we've tried to set up this structure of steel, which will prevent that from happening. Again, this larger steel components here visually supporting the brick above. Here's some details showing the main entrance to the building, a slightly different treatment with the cast stone surround. There is a recess, there is a flush fire door right here. We have recessed the doors so that they can swing out fully without having to be recessed. Again, the canopy for the main entrance, and then the retail component beyond. Again, important to us were the depth and articulation of this to try to provide a more evocative facade that relates to these richer architectural expressions of the two buildings that we looked at. To the right is the cornice, which comes up as a formed painted metal cornice, and you're looking at a sliver of the fourth story partial addition above. Some other views of the same thing, showing some of the architectural detail. We are looking at a standard, fairly standard window, but with an extrusion, a metal thin extrusion to give it a little more depth and character. The recessed brick spandrels and the vertical brick piers. And then here are some streetscapes which we put together to show the effect within the district, but also to talk about the upper floor. Here's again the stair and elevator bulkhead and the partial fourth floor addition here. And again, from further up Greenpoint Avenue, looking at this handsome building at the end. So the relationship was this building to this, this commercial building to this commercial building. Other views, some showing minimal, more directly across the street, view one, showing only a sliver of the partial fourth floor. Around a little further, showing a tiny bit more of the partial fourth floor, but showing how we've tried to make this a three-dimensional exercise rather than simply a two-dimensional applique on the street. And here finally further away, view looking from 874 Manhattan Avenue, you do pick up a little piece of the stair and stair bulkhead in that area. And you will see a bit more of the partial fourth floor. These are some images that were put together at the request of the community board. They were interested in what the effect of this building would be from Milton Street, both from the church, which is a very important building for the community, and within an alleyway at 163 Milton Street. So there is no impact at the church. You cannot see the building from the church, but you see a tiny bit right now where that arrow is pointing of the existing building. And then further along, which I can't see because of everyone's Zoom postage stamps, you can see a little bit more of can everyone see the effect of the newer building, view 3, that you see a little bit more from the alleyway, but it's not something that's out of character. And the viewpoints are shown below. And here's the back of the building. This is from sort of an aerial perspective that shows the heights of the surrounding building. You can see the church, which is 2 stories, but it's a very tall structure. The 4-story residential building directly across, and then our building with the 2nd floor terrace, which is really the existing roof of the 1st floor, and the 3rd floor terrace, which is really the roof of the existing 2nd floor. So the only new construction beyond the required 30-foot rear yard is the stair bulkhead, which is permitted by zoning due to its positioning 100 feet from the corner. So you get this small tail that comes up to roughly three stories, and then 4 where it dumps out onto the roof. The existing walls are which are very close to the lot line, approximately 4 feet from the lot line, are in pretty bad condition. So we're going to re-stucco them and clean this up. The building the building has an egress easement which goes out to Milton, which we'll show you in just a moment. So this was asked for in a way to explain what was going on at the back of the building. Other views of that, again, showing the terraces at the second floor and third floor. That they're really lower than the actual four-story apartment buildings across. And then these drawings were intended to show a little bit more of the, in a granular level, what's going on at the storefront. We wanted to create an identifiable and richer surround for each of these retail units. Again, you see the steel surrounds visually supporting the brick piers. Then you see the cast stone insert, and then the painted metal storefront themselves with large, oversized doors entering to them. And then at the building entrance, the blind egress panel with a side light going into the lobby. It's a very minimal lobby. It's not a large building. And then some detail within the spandrel levels at both the first and the second floor, showing the recessed brick spandrels and the metal architectural components and the proposed signage. And then at the top, the same expression, the recessed spandrels, the metal cornice. And then what I'd like you to note is that in an effort to keep the height of this down on the street, the cornice is roughly at roof level. And what we've done is we've pushed the required parapet back to the extent permitted by code. So you don't really see it from the street. The sight line just misses it over it. So it's, from many perspectives, you will see it from some perspectives up and down the street, but directly across, the reading will be of the cornice being the true top of the building. And then finally, this is the top. It's simply a simple curtain wall clad partial fourth floor. And then on top, the units, the air conditioning units, which are not seen from any vantage point, which are split. So it's a VRF system. The units are smaller and they will supply heat and cooling to the building. And then here, lastly, are signage, our ideas for signage. We have, originally what we were proposing is for the main entry having die cut letters identifying the building, the same for the retail on the more compressed canopies, on the 3-foot deep canopies, that pin lettering at the retail level. We have an alternate which changes that slightly, which leaves the building identification at the top of the canopy, but hangs the retail signage on the underside of the canopy in a way that makes it a little less prominent and more in keeping with what you'd see in the district. And then finally, here you are. These are not quite the same angle, but you can see the difference of what we're proposing versus what's existing. We do have a small appendix of some other things that were asked for by the community board.
So we can use those, I think, if we have any questions.
Okay, so I'll just stop here. Is that?
Yeah, I think that would
Okay.
be good. Thank you for the very thorough presentation. Commissioner Goldblum, please go ahead.
Can you go back to that rendering? Thanks. Last
Which
shot.
one?
The last shot for the appendix.
Yep. That one.
All right, thanks. So you mentioned that you went to extra effort to keep the perceived cornice low relative to the parapet.
Yes.
Is that because is there any reason why you did that? Is your building dramatically taller than the other 4-story buildings on the block? Or what are you, why are you worried about that?
Well, we just felt that it would be desired to keep, just given some of the lower buildings around it. We felt that trying to compress that would be a useful gesture. That we do acknowledge the jump of scale between the bank building to the right. And we really wanted to mitigate that to the degree that we could. So we felt that would be a helpful way to do that, rather than extending it taller than it needed, higher than it needed to be.
Okay, and the second question is, every retail space has like kind of a mini canopy over it.
Yes.
Is that in any way contextual? Do you see that in this neighborhood or on this strip at all? Or is it like in the way of any kind of canopy at retail entrances, or is that your addition?
Well, what you see generally in a lot of these cases is that every retail tenant does something that's radically different, and it creates a really chaotic experience of the street. So what we felt is that we would like to try to control that to the degree that we could by introducing some elements and some signage requirements that the owner would enforce, that would try to unify the signage across. I mean, you do see awnings and canopies and signage in every kind of position in lots of these buildings due to the removal of piers and glazing over them and lack of any kind of signage master plan. So the intent was to do something that could be enforced, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 tenants, that could be enforced across the face of the building.
Okay, thank you. Generally speaking, we're pretty good at enforcing that kind of thing, so I wouldn't worry about that too much, but thank you.
All right, other questions? Okay, I don't see any other questions at this time, so let's move to public testimony. If you're in the meeting and would like to speak on this item, please raise your virtual hand so we can identify you. And I will turn it over to Gregory Kalla to take us through the testimony.
Okay, thank you, Chair Carroll. We received a few signups beforehand, so I will be going through those names first. Okay, so I do know that a representative from Brooklyn Community Board 1 did sign up. I'm trying to see if her name is there, but I'll move on first, and I'll let Lucy Levine from Historic Districts Council. I'm promoting you to panelist right now. So if you could please state your name for the record and unmute your line, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC agrees with Brooklyn Community Board 1 that this proposal is inappropriately generic in relation to the visual interest of the existing building and to other purpose-built commercial structures in the Greenpoint Historic District. The Polonaise is an unofficial landmark in Greenpoint and a visual anchor of the neighborhood. It would do damage to the neighborhood, the streetscape, and the historic district to replace it with a design that lacks a similar level of architectural interest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Lucy. And next up will be Jeremy Woodoff from VSNY. So Jeremy, I will be promoting you to panelist right now. So if you could please unmute your line and state your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon again, Commissioners. I'm Jeremy Woodoff, speaking for the Victorian Society, New York. Mindful of the Victorian Society's past objections to demolition of other altered historic district buildings, we look carefully at this proposal. Unlike those other cases, it appears that there would be little, if anything, left to restore behind the present facades, and the original buildings don't appear to have been of such historic or architectural significance that they should be reconstructed. However, we do note that if the cast iron framing is intact behind the larger building, that may introduce a complication that would revise our view of its removal. However, we do not find the present facade to be significant to the historic district. Therefore, we support the proposed demolition of the existing buildings and construction of a new building. Our concern, as I just mentioned, however, being any intact cast iron material behind the facade. Regarding the proposed design, we find the scale, height, and composition of the proposed building to be typical of and appropriate to the more commercial parts of the district. The modern style has some precedent, and we think it works in this location of stylistically mixed buildings. We do, however, have a recommendation concerning the proposed building's relentlessly gray palette. The project would benefit from an addition of color. Note how the otherwise monochromatic bank building adjacent is enlivened by the bronze window and door infill. This use of a secondary color in historic district buildings seems typical, and we recommend it here. Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, thank you so much, Jeremy. That is all. Those are all the hands that I'm seeing up. I'm going to search one more time for Brooklyn Community Board 1, and I cannot find them. So I will state for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 1 did recommend conditional approval with the following reservations, with consideration to the existing purpose-built commercial structures in the Greenpoint Historic District. They asked for an upgrading of material and design, and for a building less generic than what is presented. Also, the ceiling heights on the 3rd floor and penthouse to be reduced from 14 feet to a more reasonable height. The canopies, especially over the front entrance and the signage to be reduced in size, and consideration of a redesign of the cornice that the volume be broken. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to turn back to the applicants and ask if you'd like to respond to the comments.
With regard to existing architectural elements, an earlier alt to interior demolition was undertaken to strip things out so we could see what was happening on the inside of the building. And there are the cast iron enfraiments that were at the 2nd floor of the taller building are no longer in existence. There are cast iron columns which were structural in nature that are close to the facade, but they do not appear to contain any architectural elements at all. So there was really nothing left to work with. We did, however, want to respect the module of the old building. So there is some direct correlation there, but there was really nothing left to work with. With regard to the signage, I think it's worth looking at perhaps a reduction in depth of some of the commercial canopies. And we did. If you look at the details of the cornice, there are breaks in it. Leonard, can you go there? Thank you. There are some additional, there are breaks at the piers that do reflect the architecture, the piers and pilasters coming up from below. And we do feel like, this building it's certainly in spirit of, we hope it's in spirit of the district, but we do believe in a modern approach to this and feel strongly that simplifying some of these elements are desirable. And in terms of the color palette, that could be looked at. Perhaps we look at some of the metal coloring, but we do have the cast stone surrounds down below. So I think, the color palette, we have different paint colors, we have different, the brick palette is not simply a gray brick. It's a range of color within the brick. And we just felt that it was a calmer way to approach the district rather than having too much jarring contrast there.
Okay, Thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? All right, not seeing any final questions. I'm sending you all requests to unmute so we can move to our discussion. Commissioner Jefferson, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Gustafson, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the hearing's closed and we'll begin our discussion on this proposed new building in the Greenpoint Historic District. Commissioner Goldblum, would you like to start this one?
Sure, thank you. Okay, I personally think this is a very handsome project. I think that much as the kitsch monster inside me that loves the existing building, I certainly think it's appropriate to remove it. Although it definitely is a landmark on that block. I mean, you can't miss this thing. It's quite outstanding in the literal sense of that word. But I think it's appropriate to demolish it and remake it as a facade. I think that the articulation and detailing of the main body of the second and third floor facade is very sophisticated and thoughtful and careful, and will result in a quality building that in its own way, in a masonry way, kind of channels the cast iron qualities of some of the buildings that preceded it, and maybe the building that was here before it was modified. I do think it could be improved a little bit, though. I think that the suppressed cornice winds up, in a way, I think, foregrounding the height and visibility of the penthouse. So I would suggest that they could consider raising the cornice, increasing the height of that frieze above the third floor windows, and masking the visibility of the top floor, in combination with a reduction in the height of the fourth floor, which I think it was 12-foot clear or something like that, 11'6" clear, is more than is necessary for a rather small space. I also think that the base is curious to me, because what happens with these canopies, not the one over the entrance, but the retail 3 bays, is that the mini marquees kind of break the base from the upper segment. And I think that as a measure of control over unruly retail tenants, I think it's overkill. I think that it's more important, especially on this street, which if you look at it, and I think that the streetscape diagram was very, very helpful to me. It is a very planar street. It's very flat, and that's kind of its character. And I think that the over exaggeration of depth on that those marquees create is not contributing to a contextual experience of the retail. I also think that the option of putting the signage below the marquees is the better option, because it downplays the retail, and it's where you expect to see retail signage, as opposed to the signage over the marquee for the address, which is in a proper location, but which I think should be reduced in size considerably. I think that the side facades are totally appropriate. The rear construction is totally appropriate. I do think that the comments from the Victorian Society about color are on point, though. I think that the use of the gray, in a way, visually, again, thinking about that streetscape view, it does blend with the bank. And I don't think that's the right move. I think the right move is that the bank is a Beaux-Art foreground structure that's meant to contrast with its surroundings. And I think that by blending with it, you take that specialness away from the bank for me. I don't think that the building needs to be red brick. I think you can go to any number of options, but I think that the kind of brown spectrum tonality of the street as a whole should be respected by what is basically another retail with multi-story above structure. It's kind of more of the fabric of the street. The bank and its companion across the street are meant to stand out. And by using the gray brick, which I love and which I've used myself on a bunch of jobs, I think it's a lovely brick, but I think it really puts this in competition with the Beaux-Arts gems that are meant to stand out.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Devonshire?
I agree with much of what Michael has said. I think that the penthouse needs to be reduced in size. I don't really get the smaller marquees on the sidewalk, and I think they could either be eliminated or reduced. And I do agree that the signage should go below whatever that feature is going to be.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, I don't know what to add. I think this is I agree with the comment about this is the demolition is fine. I think the proposal, the applicant did a good job. And so there seems to be I rather not add to the tinkering, so I will defer to the majority to see what they think about the whether the corners being enlarged or the signage on below on the base.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Bland?
Well, I thought I needed an afternoon pickup and I was about to go get some coffee until this came along. This is really an exciting little proposal, I think. I'm not going to miss what it's taking away from the casino revival style as it was expressed. I don't have that same kitsch monster in me, Michael, but maybe I should have a little more of it. In any event, I think this is a very sophisticated scheme. More sophisticated maybe than the surroundings for the most part, but I think that's changing in Greenpoint, and I think this is stepping it up and appropriately. I don't have a problem with this gray color. If the architect feels he wants to introduce a little more texture and a little bit more color into it, I wouldn't think that's a bad thing necessarily, but there's a certain sophistication here, which is almost like a Lucan building, which is really it's an unusual building, and I'm quite enamored with it. I like the surrounds down around the individual storefronts. I would hope they don't change, actually. I would think that the sign band should be under, as others have suggested. The cornice I find to be extremely sophisticated and elegant, and I hope that doesn't change at all. I think that's really doing its job. And stepping back the parapet wall was a brilliant move. Should the top floor be slightly lower? Sure, why not? It doesn't need to be that tall, and I think seeing a little bit less would be fine. But all in all, I think this is a really handsome, sophisticated building.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lutfi?
I'm just going to add to the positive things that people have been saying. I also don't have a problem with the demolition of the existing building with all the graffiti on it and the fact that it was vacant and unused. I am not so sure that the community loved it so much, toward the end. I'm sure it has there are a lot of wonderful stories and history of what went on inside. But I believe that this is a really nice addition to the neighborhood, which, everyone has pointed out is changing and evolving. And it's an addition that is understated in a lot of ways. It's not trying it does stand out, but it stands out in an understated way, just because the design is very well done. And it's very well thought through in terms of the facade of the building. You know, as Michael had pointed out, the articulation of the windows, the heights. I mean, could it have been not quite as high? Maybe, but I don't have a problem with any of the height, I guess, until you get to the roof. And then I think the height could come down, and maybe that penthouse could even be set back a little bit. You know, the applicant talked about the fact that they really needed flexibility in terms of the ground floor space, and actually in terms of the office spaces as well, because they weren't 100% sure of what the current market would bring to them. But in thinking about it for the ground floor space, I think it's great that they're planning to have either a large use or one, you know, potentially 3 uses. And I think, though, that really speaks to this idea of not having these cornices that jut out so far. They seem very out of place to me on this building. So I would cut them back significantly, or maybe even take them off. And I also agree, if they stay in a more refined, shorter way, that the signage should go below and not be too oversized. I'm not sure of the height. I also, of the letters, I also think that canopy on the office entrance is way too big. It's too wide and way too deep. And I can't figure out why it should be that size. And this really doesn't speak to anything in the surrounding neighborhood. I don't know if I mentioned the color of the brick, but I think it's very handsome, and I appreciate Michael Goldblum's comment about that it might be competing a little bit with that little gem of a bank, but I wouldn't recommend changing it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jefferson.
This is such an interesting proposition. I mean, it's a truly elegant facade, and it's almost there, but there's certain things that are not working for me. I mean, the second and third floor is an intricate proposition of grids and windows coming together to create this kind of 4 bays, and that works very well. The ground floor, the urban level, is a little busy, and I think the problem there is because of the canopy and the framing, the marquee framing, and you don't need both of them. You could have one. And if you did have one, it would simplify the base. And there's also kind of another layer. The marquee wraps around the column is pushed back. It's a very intricate, carefully done facade, which has its beauty. I think the cornice might be sticking out too far. It maybe should go back a little bit and not be as prevalent. Of course, the penthouse should be lowered. But the other issue for me is these diagonal views from the bank and from this view. From the bank, especially the view of the building, if you go to LPC 23, that image, I think this view it's too dominant for the bank. It should be simplified, maybe pushed back. The bank is such a beautiful object, but when you look at it at this angle, all I see is the penthouse and the bulkhead. But I'm not sure that we need to change the color. I think the color is fine. And because once you start to change the color of the surrounding building, the boundary of the building, it becomes something else. So I think the way it is fine.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Gustafson.
Let's see, demolition of the existing building is fine. I think the biggest issue for me is the penthouse and the bulkhead. I think from this view, as Commissioner Jefferson pointed out, it really has that it has that image of the the small local movie theater and how that used to dominate every neighborhood, and I think it really overtakes the bank, and it's also far too visible. So that's sort of my main issue. I think I agree with everyone else on the location of signage, as well as I agree with Commissioner Jefferson about the ground floor. I think he phrased it that it is too busy, and I'm sure there are a number of different solutions to that. But as it is, I think there's far too much going on down there. It needs to be simplified. I agree with Commissioner Bland on the cornice as is, and the color of the brick is acceptable to me as it is.
Okay, thank you. All right, Commissioner Shamir Baron.
Thanks. So I'm in agreement that demolition is appropriate in this case. And while I might agree with everyone about the possibility that this is a handsome building and that it's nicely detailed, with the exception of some of the commissioners who find some parts to be busy or otherwise, I am actually in sort of disagreement fundamentally with an aspect that I think that they missed, the architects did, and that is, and this despite the fact that they shared with us all of those street elevations, which make it apparent that this was, in my mind, a miss, and that is the fact that they did not sort of respect and remember the change in elevational profile that articulated this kind of two separate buildings, a change in height on the elevation, something that expressed that fact that these were maybe at some point two separate lots, and that for all of its history has been, the elevation has been known with these kind of two different heights. And I think that would have made for a more interesting response in general. Again, I'm in agreement with everything. This is a lovely building. I just don't know that it's the right response to this condition here. And I would have wanted to see for something that recalled that shift, because when we look at the elevations, the street elevations, it is by far, maybe with the exception of the one building on Franklin Street at the very furthest right, it's by far the longest, the biggest facade, also with the exception of the other side of Franklin on the corner. And why did it need to be read to be such a big building in elevation? I don't think it needed that. So that's my problem with it. I'm concerned a little bit. I don't know what to say about that, because I do think that that the building that we're looking at, I agree with everyone else, is appropriate enough, I suppose. I just think that there's a fundamental problem with the premise.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner, we make it all the way around? We did, actually. Commissioner Chapin has left us now. Okay, so I think that we have a lot of support at the table for this particular approach and design, and I think that we're almost there. I think we've heard some comments about the base and the top, and I think with some refinements, reducing and integrating the top a little bit better, and then also thinking about the scale and simplifying the base is, I think with those two areas being restudied, I think that we would be in a place where we would have a lot of comfort with an approval, but we don't have that today, so we won't take any action, and we'll ask you to consider the comments that we've heard today by all of the commissioners, and we'll have you back as soon as you're ready.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we'll move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 8, LPC 23-00726, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 386, Lot 18. 158 Bergen Street in the Borum Hill Historic District. This is an Italianate style row house built in 1856 to 61. The application is to construct a rear yard addition.
Okay, commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing. Andrew, if you just click on your screen, you now have control of the presentation. Please state your name for the record and you may begin.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Andrew Fredman. I'm the architect for the project. My associate Chris Malloy is also on the call. I'm glad you've had your afternoon pickup. I promise this will not be as intensive, I hope, or as detailed a review. This is a proposal to add a 3-story addition to the rear of the project. This is the existing tax photo on the left. You get a sense of the front, but this is on the back. I think you're familiar with this kind of building. The front facade is being worked at a staff level, so it's not subject of this application. These are pictures of the existing rear facade of the building itself. You can see it's a painted masonry building, fire escape, which we hope to obviate as a part of our project by sprinklering the entire building. You can see the adjacent buildings somewhat here also. This gives you a sense of the Borum Hill district and the building's location within the district. It's between Hoyt and Bond on the south side of Bergen Street, approximately in the middle of the block, more towards the Hoyt side. This is a very telling slide. It gives you a sense of the existing conditions throughout the donut of the block. And as you can see, the blues are the 1-story additions, the yellows are the 2-story additions, and there are some 3-story additions on the in the vicinity of our project. I just call your attention, you'll see in the pictures, there's a very interesting of unknown derivation, standalone tall building in the middle of the block, and I'd love to find the history of that. We couldn't find that, but that's not the subject of this presentation. But as this is something that the commission reviewed recently, 184.5, where a 2-story addition was added. These are aerial shots of the entire block, and as we'll work our way across, you get a sense this is the west side, and the numbers are written on top of the buildings, and this gives you some sense of the existing extensions that have been put on the building, onto the buildings themselves. So as we work our way across, we're coming closer to our building. This is 152, and we come down and you get a set 154, 56, 58, 60. So you get a sense that going over their consistent block face and facade of going to the east side of the property of the donut. This continues going across, and I'll be happy to stop or come back to any of these you want to see. But it's just to show you an example of what's happened on the development has happened in the rear of this lot going forward in the past. This is a section of the existing building, and you can see here a section of the proposed building. We do propose to put a deck on the back of the building that projects the allowed 8 feet, and you can see all of this leaves well beyond a 30-foot rear yard extension. We have a terrace proposed for the top floor of this addition. Just for information, we do not know the subgrade conditions at the cellar. We do not intend to occupy the cellar at all, but we're showing it because we don't know if it's going to be slab on grade or whatever as we go forward. This is an existing drawing of the rear facade, and these are the areas that we intend to open up into our addition with structural members. This is the proposed addition. I should add that we put this drawing out, and we do intend to align this with the adjacent buildings. It's a drafting error that we didn't even pick up, unfortunately. There's also, as part of the proposal, is to drop the sill of this window so it could access the terrace onto the 3rd floor. The idea is to have a face brick of a buff color to keep it light colored throughout the donut, because we think that's more appropriate for the to keep its presence lighter in the entire donut. And we do propose to have dark bronze aluminum windows in the back, and I'll be happy to go over the design if there are any specific questions. The sides, we intend to use the same face brick on the sides to wrap the building entirely in the face brick. The idea of face brick as opposed to solid masonry is because it gives us more space on the inside of the building if we could do it, capture that. There is a real spatial component of this. There are very shallow buildings front to back, and by hoping to add this addition, we're going to increase the volume and the space within the usable area within the building. This is a 3D drawing that shows the before and after. I think it's quite clear how the deck is attached, and it's a steel deck, and I'm not trying to rush, but I also know it's been a long afternoon and you have a lot going on, and I can answer a lot of questions for you also. Moving forward, these are pictures taken from the top of our building leaning out, and you can see the extension looking to the west, and you see their presence and their what they cause or the limited, what I think limited detriment to the donut. These are floor plans which summarize the proposed intent. It's not that important that you just get a sense of how the addition is integrated into the proposed floors. And I will be happy to answer any questions about any of those. And I think that gives you a sense and it sums up the proposal for you. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you for the succinct presentation. Commissioners, do we have any questions about the size, design, or materials, or the context? Okay, I don't see any questions at this time, so let's move to public testimony. If you're in the meeting and would like to speak on this item, please raise your virtual hand so we can identify you, and I'll turn it over to Gregory Kalla to take us through the testimony.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We received one sign up in advance, and I will be getting to them first. The first sign up was Lucy Levine from Historic Districts Council. So Lucy, I will be promoting you to panelist now. So if you could please unmute your line and state your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds this proposal to be inappropriate. In particular, the proposed third floor bulk is completely out of scale with the surrounding buildings and will overwhelm them in a way that cannot be reversed. It has become generally accepted practice to limit the size of rear yard additions to 2 stories. This approach allows for the house to accommodate the daily functions of modern family life while maintaining the building's predominant massing. Additionally, the proposed use of buff brick for the sidewalls is inconsistent with the surrounding fabric, which is entirely red brick stucco and painted brick. It is safe to assume that as more of this building's neighbors are renovated, it is likely that they will have their red brick facades cleaned, repaired, and restored. The proposed pattern of rear facade fenestration and the proposed windows are out of character with the type and are not being executed in any compositionally innovative way that might allow for a more artistic latitude. To be blunt, this proposal is at best awkward, and as designed will permanently disfigure this particular donut. Finally, a renovation of this scale and value should include the restoration of the building's front cornice, which, in addition to contributing to the visual repair of this block street wall, will also protect the front facade from rain. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Lucy. And it does not appear as though we have any other hands raised for this. So I will also note for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 2 recommended conditional approval that's contingent on the rear extension being reduced to 2 stories to better fit the average bulk and density of the block. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I'd like to turn back to the applicant and ask if you'd like to respond to any of the comments we've heard.
Yes, the front facade is not part of this hearing, but the front is intended to be restored and has been agreed to, and an escrow, not an escrow, but the staff level has approved our plans for that already. So that's not part and parcel of this discussion. As to the use of the brick color on the back or the sides of the building, I'll defer to the commission on that. We made an intent there to keep it light colored. but we are open to a discussion on that. And as for the use of soaps or thin bricks, we could also go to full brick there. That's not an issue at all.
Okay, thanks. And commissioners, do we have any final questions? All right, I'm going to send you all requests to unmute so that we can move to our discussion. All right, Commissioner Shamir Barron, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Goldblum, would you second that motion? Oops. Cool. Commissioner Goldblum, would you second the motion? Funny, you're not muted. Michael? Okay, let me see. Commissioner Devonshire, would you second the motion?
Yes,
Okay.
I will.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. And as you know, when we review applications for rear yard additions, we look at the overall size relative to the building to which it's being added, as well as the size in relative to the context and the other additions within the block in terms of their height and their depth into the green space. And we also look at materiality and visibility and the question of removal of any significant features. So we'll have that discussion now. Commissioner Gustafson, would you like to start this one?
I think this is, for me, it's pretty straightforward. If you look at the rendition of the donut on page 5 of the presentation, I don't think this is going to come as any surprise to the architect. This is a relatively, I mean, compared to market, this is about as pristine a donut as it gets, and context is really what we turn to. So I think we have to agree with the community board here that it has to come down a story to be even within shouting distance of its neighbors. I would also note that when you looked at the entire row of buildings, the top story of this building is one of the few that's inconsistent with the rest. It would have been lovely to have the applicant suggest restoring that to its original fenestration. However, we can't make them do that. In any event, so I'm fine with materials, et cetera. It's got to come down a story.
Okay, thank you. All right, Commissioner Shamir Barron.
I am in agreement. I mean, I think, we have approved 3-story extensions. So it's important to recognize that those have happened, but I think that the context here does guide. And so I'm in agreement. It should be 2 stories.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Goldblum.
I agree.
All right, Commissioner Devonshire
I agree, 2 stories.
and Commissioner Chen
Same here.
and Commissioner Bland.
2 stories.
Okay, Commissioner Lutfi. Oh, you're muted.
I wholeheartedly agree, and full brick would be great.
Commissioner Jefferson.
2 stories.
Okay, so I think we're all in agreement, given the context within this block, that it should be 2 stories. So Commissioner Gustafson, would you make that motion?
I'm sure. In the matter of LPC 23-00726 158 Bergen Street in the Burham Hill Historic District, the application is to construct a rear yard addition. I note that the building's scale, style, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Burham Hill Historic District. I recommend approval with the modification, finding that the proposed work will not eliminate or damage any significant architectural features or be visible from a public thoroughfare, that the simple massing, brick cladding, high solid to void ratio, and punched masonry openings of the addition will be typical of secondary facades of buildings within this historic district and in keeping with the residential character of the building and row, that the addition will not rise to the full height of the building, thereby helping to retain defining aspects of the building's original scale and massing, that the addition will not project further into the rear yard than the majority of other existing rear additions at this block, eliminate the presence of a rear yard, or diminish the continuity of the central green space. That given the substantial depth of the rear yards, the presence of a two-story rear addition could be compatible with the surrounding context, and that the use of light-colored thin, we recommend the use of full bricks, the use of those full bricks at a small scale rear addition with limited cladding areas do not detract from the house's surrounding context. However, I find that the presence of a three-story rear addition at this house will exceed the predominant height of existing rear extensions and additions in this block, and therefore I recommend that the rear addition be limited to 2 stories.
All right, Commissioner Shamir Barron, would you second the motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Shamir Barron,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Devonshire,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Gustafson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
With 9 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, that's approved with the condition that it be 2 stories and that you work with the staff on the brick, and we'll move to the next item.
Thank you.
The next item is public hearing item number 9, LPC 22-07418. An application for certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, block 1138, lot 5, 593A Vanderbilt Avenue in the Prospect Heights Historic District. This is an Italianate style store and flats building, is built in circa 1879, and the application is to construct a freestanding pavilion in the rear yard.
Okay, Commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing. The staff will be taking you through the presentation. So James, if you could unmute yourself, I will hand control over to you. And if you could just click on your screen. Perfect. Please state your name for the record and you may be.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. James Rusiello, Preservation Staff. The application before you is to construct a greenhouse-like restaurant pavilion at the rear yard that will not be visible from any public thoroughfare. It will be located at the end of the block, adjacent to another full lot coverage, 1-story addition, and near a large apartment building. Seem to have gone too quickly. The pavilion is freestanding and will feature brick piers infilled with stucco panels at the lot lines with clerestory windows set 6 foot 10 inches above the ground level.
You never gave me that section.
And a retractable aluminum and glass, and a retractable aluminum glass roof finished with a teal color. This is sluggish. Let me just get to that rendering. The architect, Nabil Isaac, and owner Richard Wu are available on this call to answer your questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have any questions? All right, we don't see any questions at this time, so we'll move to public testimony. If you're in the meeting and would like to speak on this item, please raise your virtual hand and I will turn it over to Gregory Kala to take us through the testimony.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We received a couple of signups beforehand, so I'll be going through those first. The first to speak will be Gib Vacconi. So Gib, I will be promoting you to panelist now. And if you just state your name for the record and unmute your line, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you. Hello, Gib.
Sorry about that. Let me start my video as well. Let me start again. Thank you. Gib Vacconi of the Prospect Heights Neighborhood Development Council. Our organization led the designation of the Prospect Heights Historic District in 2009. In principle, we do not oppose dining structures in the rear yards of buildings on Vanderbilt Avenue. However, we do have 3 objections to the present application. The first is that the size of the awning and the structure reads as a 2-story building sort of in behind
the main building at 538 Vanderbilt Avenue. We would like to see the height of the awning reduced so it does not break the line of the second floor windows. So it looks more like a greenhouse and not sort of its own larger structure. We would like to see the color of the awning be something neutral, like a natural sort of copper oxidizing type of a finish, rather than the paint, which we think will kind of create a very distracting view in the rear yard. And then finally, we do not like to see lot line windows, even though the lot line windows in this application, the larger ones in the original application, were reduced to sort of clerestory windows over those green walls. We just don't support having lot line windows on extensions in the historic district. And if those modifications were to be made, we would support this application. So thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Okay, thank you so much, Gib. We will be moving on now to Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. So Lucy, I'm promoting you to panelist now. And if you could please just state your name for the record and unmute your line, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC largely supports this proposal and finds it appropriate, except for a modest objection to the roof color, which we believe should be more muted in deference to the other residents of the donut. We would like to see it painted black instead of green. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lucy. And I believe that is all we have for hands raised on this issue. So I will note that Brooklyn Community Board 8 plans to withhold support unless the following changes were made: changing the color of the structure or enclosure to a more muted color, reducing the height of the structure or enclosure, and removing all of the lot line windows. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I'd like to turn back to the applicant and ask if you'd like to respond to the comments we've heard.
Nabil, you're muted.
Hi.
Hi. If you could just
I'm sorry,
state-
I didn't hear what
yeah.
you asked me for. Hi.
Yeah, please just
Commissioner
state.
Carroll, hi, nice to see you again. After all
Nice
these
to
years.
see you.
Go ahead.
Just state your name for the record, and then if you'd like to respond to any of the comments we've heard in the public testimony, which were about the color, the overall height, and the lot line windows.
Yes, indeed. Nabil, Isaac Design Architect. Yeah, I mean, the three comments, basically, the height, again, my proposal is more of a like a sculpture looking format that I was trying to find. I was trying to do a sculpture in the background, in the backyard, versus that bulky stuff that you see, for example, next door to us on this rendering exactly. So the adjacent building is like almost 15 feet high. And if I enclose this thing, I would have had to build the same thing, which would really make it really bulky. And so I tried to go more for plasticity. And what I did is I only have like an 8-foot high piers with the steel. And then the rest is just plastic, clear glass, more of a plasticity feeling to a diamond shaped thing. So bottom line is, the height is not really an issue for me here. Why? First of all, the true height of the building is really up to the steel beams. Beyond that, it's recessed. So with the recess, I'm not creating a bulk. I'm not creating anything thick volume. No, I'm creating something more transparent and clear. And when it's open, especially, it's just almost, the bulk is almost inexistent. So that was the whole concept of not creating something bulky in the back. I mean, we have an 8-story building next to us that's hiding everything. that's taken over in this donut, the backyard. So what I'm doing is not really affecting much of the perspectives from the streets, or anyway, first of all, it's not visible from streets, as James mentioned earlier. And so that's basically about the height. The height is not really a high extension. What I'm doing is really with the recess, with the gable shape, with the, you know, it becomes really not bulky. So the height, you know, again, for the height, it's not visible from the street. So I'm just respectfully requesting from the commission to allow me to use it because it's not visible. You know, I'm basically complying with the landmarks rules and regulations on this one. Now, when it comes down to the color, you know, we had originally a copper, but rustic copper finish, okay? And but the community board was not happy with the rustic look. They wanted something more muted. And I'm willing to work with them on this one. It's not an issue at all. I'll take care of it. What we decided is to use the steel color because this is basically something I've done 22 years ago at the Heights restaurant across the street from Columbia University. It's there, it's been there, and the color is there. And with the greens that you end up putting inside of these extensions, or pretty much like I did across the street from Columbia at the Heights, you know, when we put the greens inside, you know, and planters and flowers and all that stuff, somehow that green tends to go very well with any kind of flowers or planters or greenery that we put inside. So this is by the manufacturer, basically, this color. They do that, they have it in stock. It's not painted, it's just an aluminum that has this color, okay? So this is what I would prefer over the copper look. I mean, I did have the copper, but I wanted the copper rustic, the rustic copper, and I'm surprised that Gib now mentioned, I'm sorry, I forgot his last name, that he just mentioned that he wants copper, because I wanted the copper originally, but they were against it. Most of them were against it. So this is what I'm proposing, and I'm willing to work with them if they want to suggest another color, under one condition though, that the manufacturer would have it. I don't have to, I don't want to like go manufacture a piece of metal that has that color. It's very difficult, it's very expensive. So the manufacturer has a bunch of colors. This is my favorite that goes best with whatever we're going to put inside. And therefore, you know, respectfully requesting as well to keep this color, which is hunter green, okay, as per the manufacturer, and which is very, it's not close to the copper, but it's almost there. It's almost there. And lastly, the third objection was the windows, okay. As per New York City Building Code, you know, there's a section in the code that allows it. So as long as we provide with some conditions to it, we have to provide a sprinkler head in front of the window, and we are going to have wire glass. So in this condition, in this case, I worked with the community board. Instead of having a full height or like a nice size, generous size window, we also decided that we want, my client and I, we want privacy as well for our clients inside. You know, we don't want people to peek at us from windows and stuff like that. So what we agreed, and we worked with the community board on this one, we raised the windows, the enclosures. It will, so instead of building out of brick to make it more bulky, so we again gave it some, made it as colorful as possible, but compatible. So it will be the same stucco that's used in the back of all these buildings that you see in this photo. So it will be the same color stucco, and it matches the brick, because we picked a brick that matches this color of the stucco that is existing on the back of these facades. And it's going to be built out of a drywall, which means, you know, we're going to provide a lot of insulation in there to keep the energy, to be more energy efficient. And we're going to finish these enclosed windows now, the enclosure, with like some green on the other side, on the inner side. again, to keep the greenhouse feel to it and to keep it like green, to keep the greenery inside of it, okay? So it won't be masonry, brick heavy. It'll be like lighter construction. So the clear story windows that I'm proposing, and I'm respectfully requesting that you allow us this stuff, is because, you know, we're proposing two things: that these windows would be fixed, one, inoperable, and two, that they will be sandblasted, so they will provide the light to the room. Okay, so but they will be fixed, they will not be operable, and they will not be see-through, so they will not be clear. So we will sandblast them. And again, working with the community board, beautiful people of the community board, who, by the way, I commend them a lot on doing this pedestrian zone in front of this property, because this was a big selling point for my client. He bought the building because of the pedestrian area on the weekends and Friday night in front of this building. So I commend them for that. So I'm willing to work with them, but I'm respectfully requesting that you allow me to do these things, just to keep the main motif of this backyard intact as the way I wanted it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? Okay, I don't see any final questions, so we'll move to close the hearing. Commissioner Gustafson, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
So second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed, and we'll begin our discussion for this rear yard pavilion that would partially enclose the rear yard space. It's on an avenue where we have other full lot rear yard additions, and we've heard the applicants, we've heard testimony about the color and windows, and we've heard the applicant's response to that. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Lutfi, would you like to start this one?
Sure. So, you know, the structure itself is fine as a structure. Won't be visible. It's open in a way you would think a backyard restaurant space would be, from a, you know, letting light in standpoint. I have to say that I appreciate everything that the architect had to say. But I do think the color is a problem. And having lot line windows is atypical. So I would recommend against that. I like the idea that there's the roof is retractable, but those are the changes I would make.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
Yes, the scale of the building, I think is wonderful. The height, the 17-foot height is really nice. I think the color, the color doesn't say much to me. It doesn't tell me anything more about the structure. So I think you should negotiate with the community board. And like these lot line windows, should not have lot line windows. I mean, what does it matter if it has lot line windows or not? I recommend no lot line windows.
Okay, thank you.
Simplify this.
All right. Commissioner Gustafson?
On the color, I'm sure that working with their manufacturer, there's an alternative, and so they can work with our staff on that and figure out something that's going to make everyone happy. I'm sure that's going to happen. On the lot line windows, it's we do have our standards, and so I think we follow those, and so I'm with the prior two commissioners on.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Shamir Baran?
I'm in agreement with everything that's been said so far.
Commissioner Goldblum?
Me too. I would just add one little issue for them to think about. I think the drainage on these things doesn't work. The drainage is down at the top of that green beam. And what, practically speaking, that's going to throw a lot of water onto the neighbors. So I think what's going to wind up happening is that something's going to have to be done to fix it when the neighbors complain that they get waterfalls on their yard. But that's out of our purview. I agree with everyone else's comments about the color and the lot line windows.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Davensure,
I agree with my colleagues as well.
Commissioner Chen,
Yeah, in agreement here, and good catch, Commissioner Goldblum.
okay, Commissioner Bland.
I'm the last one and I'm in total agreement.
Okay, all right, so I think we can make a motion to approve it today with the condition that they work with the staff on a color that will fit more harmoniously or contextually within this context, and that the lot line windows be eliminated. So Commissioner Lutfi, would you make that motion?
Sure. In the matter of docket 07418 5938 Vanderbilt Avenue, Prospect Heights Historic District, an Italianate style store and flats building built in circa 1879. The application is to construct a freestanding pavilion in the rear yard. I know that the building's style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Prospect Heights Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the proposed work will not be visible from any public thoroughfare, that the proposed restaurant pavilion in the rear yard featuring masonry walls with a metal frame retractable glass roof will be set apart from the row house and will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features of the building or rear yard, that the pavilion will be located at the ends of the block along Commercial Street, adjacent to another large full lot rear addition of a similar scale and a large apartment building on Bergen Street. Therefore, the presence of the pavilion in this context will not diminish the unified green space at the center of the block, that the proposed retractable glass roof will maintain a semblance of the openness at the rear yard and will be simple in design and recall typical greenhouse forms, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the Prospect Heights Historic District. However, I also find that the bright green finish will call undue attention to itself, and that the presence of lot line windows on structures within the rear yards is atypical. Therefore, I recommend that the finish be changed to a more neutral color that is more harmonious with its surroundings, working closely with the staff and the community, and that the lot line clerestory windows be removed.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Gustafson, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Shamir Barron,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Davensure,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Gustafson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
With 9 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
So that's approved with those modifications. Please continue to work with the staff, and we'll now move to the next item.
The next item is public hearing item number 10, LPC 23-01743. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Queens, Block 149, Lot 34. 39-21 46th Street in the Sunnyside Gardens Historic District. This is a colonial revival style row house designed by Clarence Stein and Henry Wright, built in 1925. The application is to install skylights.
Okay, commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing. And Laura, I'm going to give you control of the presentation. If you could just click on your screen. Perfect. And you can advance the slides using your arrow keys. Great. Please state your name for the record and you may begin.
Hi, yeah, my name is Laura Heim of Laura Heim Architect in Sunnyside, Queens. I'm here representing my client, a single family homeowner, 3921 46th Street, and we have an application to do rear skylights on their property. We're doing other work, but this is what we're coming to the hearing for. You can see the property is located in Hamilton Court, which is in the center of the historic district, and we're at the northern end, the red dot. The house is unusual in that it's a single family house and it's next to an adjacent 3-family. So it has 2 facades that face the public way. The 3-family is set back. You can see view 1 is from the street. View 2 is the side with the exposed side windows. View 3 is from the rear. You can see they have an existing skylight in their attic, as well as a roof vent. And then view 4 is from across the way on 47th Street, looking through the alley at what would be, without the vegetation in the spring and summer, the top of the roof of their pitch. So what we're proposing is we would like to make, amongst other work we're doing on the house, we're making a habitable bedroom in the attic, which has to be under an 8-foot by 80 square foot space. And in order to do that, we wish to introduce skylights to provide the required light and air. You can see that there is an existing skylight, but that's in an area near the stair. So the new skylights are going to be over the bedroom area. There'll be 2 of them. There will also be a new master bath. So there'll be a new plumbing vent and a new exhaust vent cap. This is all in an existing historic slate roof, hence we're at this hearing. The other unusual thing is that their 3-family building basically blocks part of the rear facade of this house. So here you can see what we're proposing. The existing has the single skylight, and the proposed is going to have the 2 skylights. One is partially blocked when you're actually in the rear courtyard with the 3-family building, and then the exhaust vent and the new plumbing vent. So we did the sight lines to try to see how much you could see it through the alleyway across the way on 47th Street. We took 3 views, one across the street, one in the middle of 47th Street, and one on the same side of the street. You will be able to see in plan the upper level, because the lower level is blocked by the 3-family. You can see the upper level. It's located here. And without the vegetation, you'll see half or less than half of the skylight peeking up over the 3-family. So here I did a mock-up trying to outline where, this is in October, where you might see the 2 skylights exaggerated so that you could see their location through the vegetation and through the alleyway from 47th Street. They're not visible from 46th Street from the front. So we also looked at existing skylights that have been approved in Sunnyside Gardens recently. There's been 3 skylights approved on the roof of a house on 44th Street and 2 skylights approved on a house on 45th Street. There are also several existing skylights from prior becoming a landmark district in the vicinity of the yellow house, which is our property. So here you can see the approved skylights. Number 1 is very similar. It was recently approved to this house. It's adjacent to a 3-family as well. And the other is three larger skylights that are in a Muse house on 44th Street. Of course, there are other skylights that have been introduced over time prior to landmarking. We're just showing you some examples on the rear facades of these skylights. And finally, with the skylight we propose, it's by Supreme Skylights. They make these this size skylight with a bronze finish. It'll match the existing skylight that's there. It has a flat top. It projects minimally, and it has the size required in order to meet the light and air requirements of 12 square feet minimum. But we also are introducing a second skylight, so just to make the room look nicer. So 12 square feet is the minimum required, and we're proposing to put 2 on the roof. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for such a clear presentation too. Commissioners, do we have any questions? All right, and I'll just note for the record that Commissioner Goldblum is recused on this item and has not been present for the presentation. We'll move to public testimony now. If you're in the meeting and would like to speak on this item, please raise your virtual hand so we can identify you, and I'll turn it over to Gregory Kalla to take us through the testimony.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We did not receive any signups beforehand, and I'm looking through the attendees and I'm not seeing any hands raised. So I will just note for the record that Queens Community Board 2 or 3 rather recommends approval on this project. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so I think the testimony was fairly straightforward. Laura, is there any final comment you'd like to make before we close the hearing and move to our discussion?
No, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. All right, commissioners, I'm going to start to send you requests to unmute so we can move to our discussion. Right, and Commissioner Bland, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
And Commissioner Devonshire, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. This is an application for 2 skylights on the rear facade, which would be minimally and seasonally visible through the pathway and into the courtyards. And the applicant has presented us with other skylights that have been approved by the commission and others that have been installed since prior to the designation of the historic district. Commissioner Chen, would you like to start this one?
Yeah, this is the simple one. There've been prior approvals as minimal removal of shingles, and so this is appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bland?
We like softballs at the end of the day. Yes, I think this is a very straightforward and simple one. The removal of some protected material, the shingles, but I think not enough to damage the overall effect. So, and we already have skylights up there, so I think this is fine.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lutfi?
I agree. It's very appropriate.
Commissioner Jefferson?
Appropriate.
Commissioner Gustafson?
Appropriate.
Commissioner Shamir Barron?
Acceptable and appropriate.
Commissioner Commissioner Devonshire?
Is that a slate roof?
It is a slate roof and there will be some limited removals in order to install.
I'm okay with it, and the slates can be salvaged and reused as cheese plates.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we have a consensus to support. So Commissioner Chen, would you make that motion?
Provided I get to sample those cheese plates.
Yes.
In the matter of LPC 23-0143, 39-2146 Street, Sunnyside Garden Historic District, the application is to install skylights. Noting the building style, scale, materials, details, and citing among the features that contribute to the special architectural historic character of the Sunnyside Gardens Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the installation will require a minimal removal of historic slate shingles for each skylight, that the proposed skylights will not be visible over the front facade of the building, and a portion will only be seasonally visible from a limited view corridor on 47th Street, that the installation preserves the silhouette of the roof and relationship to other houses in the court, that the other skylights installed in pitch roofs in this historic district, and this work reflects the adaptive reuse of the attic spaces of these very small houses over time, that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or historic district.
Thank you. Commissioner Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll?
Aye.
Commissioner Bland?
Aye.
Commissioner Shamir Barron?
Aye.
Commissioner Chen?
Aye.
Commissioner Devonshire?
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum? Oh, he's recused. Commissioner Gustafson?
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson?
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi? Commissioner Lutfi? She not here?
Sorry, I'm here.
Okay.
Hi. Aye.
With 8 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, that's approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll now move to the next and final item for the day.
All right, that's public hearing item number 11, LPC 22-05842, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Queens, block 10301, lot 28, 11203 178th Street in the Adderley Park Historic District. This is currently a vacant lot. The application is to construct a freestanding house.
Okay, commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing. Laura, if you could unmute yourself, I will give you control of the presentation.
Hello.
So if you could just click on your screen, you can advance the slides using your arrow keys or your mouse. Please state your name for the record and you may begin.
Okay, my name is Laura Samuel. I represent Gerald J. Kelly and the Architects, and this is our landmark application for 11203 178th Street, which is a 2-story, 1-family dwelling located in the historic district of Adderley Park. Adderley Park is a triangular shaped neighborhood located in Queens between the Long Island Railroad, Linden Boulevard, and Sayers Avenue. It has approximately 650 homes possessing the English Tudor style and neo-colonial revival homes constructed around the 1930s, pre-war time. This is the triangular shape that I just described 2 seconds ago. Here are examples of the English Tudor style homes within the district. They have gable roofs, dormers, Tudor style round top entrance doors, exterior half timber framing over stucco, and some have stonework and most of them have double hung windows. Sorry, my scroll. Okay. Here are some of the main houses within the district that we used as inspiration towards our building design, mainly 112-36 178th Street that you'll see in future slides. The left photo shows when the site was declared a historic district. The tax photo, however, does not show anything because it was vacant. So that's why we didn't include it in the presentation. The right photo is the current existing conditions of the proposed site. The next couple slides are houses neighboring our site along 178th Street. Some homes had inappropriate alterations, tear downs, but most still contain the original architectural elements following the English Tudor and neo-colonial revival home style. This page, for example, shows lot 17 through 27, which is directly to the right of our site along 112th Avenue. The majority of these properties, for example, lot 24 shows the half timber framing on stucco with a deep pitched roof. Similarly, slide 8, more houses further down the street showing a mix of neo-colonial revival and English Tudor style. These are different angled views, perspective views, similar to what we will be proposing on our site. This is a streetscape showing the height of our building compared to the neighboring houses. Ours is mainly taller, full 2 stories. This is the property behind our property on 112th Avenue, which is not part of the historic district, but you can see it when you're standing on the street. This page represents larger and smaller properties within the district. So we did an analysis of the orientations of the various sizes within the district. Some properties have larger lot sizes, some properties have smaller lot sizes. Ours, for example, follow these 2 particular properties in question, which is lot 1 and lot 28 on 177th Street and 180th Street. The logic behind it is that because of the small and narrow ability of the lot size, we had to put the door on the shorter side as opposed to the longer side. As you can see here, these are the larger buildings that we went through throughout the district that shows the lot sizes are significantly larger than ours. For example, it's 104 by 40, 48 by 100, irregular lot sizes, and they had the ability of putting the entrance doors on the longer side because the layout allowed for that scenario. This is a continuation of our same analysis showing the different size corner properties. This is our proposed site located on 112th Avenue and 178th Street. We are proposing to try to maintain as much grass area as possible, provide the minimal amount of concrete as required by law according to DOT standards. 178th Street, the proposed building aligns with the neighbor, creating a 20-foot front yard. And on 112th Avenue, we're providing a 15-foot front yard as required by zoning. These are the proposed plans. As you can see, we put the front main entrance on the short side, which is on 178th Street, to try to create a more open, modern concept of a layout, as opposed to having the entrance on 112th Avenue, which would create a sort of separation of spaces. We tried to achieve a more modern concept in terms of the layout, while still maintaining the historic character of the exterior. This is the proposed north facade, which is located on 112th Avenue. Our exterior design, we have beige stucco, red brick on the stairs, half timber framing, and the second floor has a 3-inch articulation beyond the first floor. We have gable roofing with dormers, roof shingles to match one of the adjacent properties on 17403 Murdoch Avenue. The proposed railing is to match another adjacent property on 112-36 178th Street. We have a photo on the left of that particular railing. The proposed windows will be the colonial style windows done by Pella, wooden frame with grille patterns painted brown. Similar design feature on all 4 sides. This is the front elevation, main entrance located on 178th Street. Same exterior concept as I just explained, Tudor style rounded entrance doors centered under the timber framing. This is the rear elevation. Same exterior concept as I have described before, and we will follow the railings to match 112-36 178th Street. This is the other exterior elevation. So we're trying to follow the Tudor style on all 4 sides. And that is it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have any questions? All right, I don't see any questions at this time, so let's see if we have public testimony. If you're in the meeting and would like to testify on this item, please raise your virtual hand so we can identify you. And I will turn it over to Gregory Kala to take us through the testimony.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We received a few signups in advance, so I'll be going through those names first. The first signup is Regina Felton. So Regina, I will be promoting you to panelist now. So if you could please unmute your line and state your name for the record, you will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you. Hello, Regina, are you with us? Hello, Regina. Okay, so I will be moving forward throughout the list. The second on the list is Faustina Hayes. So Faustina, I will be promoting you to panelist now. So if you could please unmute your line and state your name for the record. I promoted you to panelist.
Okay, Faustina Haynes. Are you able to hear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. My name is Faustina Haynes. Can I start or?
Yes, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. My name is Faustina Haynes. My husband, Emmanuel Louis, and I reside at 11207 178th Street, adjacent to the vacant plot, lot 28, block 1030. We object to the proposed project to build a single-family residence on the vacant lot 28, block 10301. We are requesting that the commission deny the builder's request to construct a single-family home on the vacant lot for the following reasons. I previously submitted a longer detailed statement to complement what I'm saying today, but for the purposes of this, I'm just going to give a brief summary. In October of 2005, we responded to an MLS listing number 1749172 by Lafferty Realty in Queens for our current residence. It was advertised with a photo for the sale of a detached family home with a 2-car garage and a private driveway. We've lived in a property for over 10 years. In March of 2018, well over 10 years after we closed on the property, the same estate that sold us the property came back and filed a lawsuit against us, claiming that the current driveway and the current garage was erected by my husband and I. These individuals filed some paperwork in the various city agencies, claiming that the current paved driveway and the garage was erected by us, and that lot 28 is claiming an additional 4.5 feet of that driveway that we previously purchased. Several city records have shown that the driveway and the garage existed well back into the 40s. In addition, our property is in an R2 zone. We have done some research with the Department of Buildings, and they've implied that there's an easement that should be considered if the project intends to break up that driveway, because it will not allow us egress and ingress into the garage. The new construction, essentially, if it intends to go into that garage, into the driveway, is going to render our property illegal as per the guidelines provided by DOB. So our attorney is actually Regina Felton. She was going to make a statement on our behalf. She intends to file additional court paperwork regarding this issue. And so we would like this project to be put on hold until that issue is resolved. And I previously sent the documentation for the additional information we gathered with the LPC, with the DOB, and so on, to your link, your website, and also to
Faustina, I'm terribly sorry. You're over time. If you could please wrap up. I'm sorry.
I'm done. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. We will be hearing from Regina Felton, who I believe is back on now. So Regina, I'll be promoting you to panelist now. And if you could please state your name for public record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Hello, Regina, are you with us? Okay. I believe she's still having difficulties, so I'll move on to Lucy Levine from HDC. So Lucy, if you could please just state your name for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC feels that this proposed new construction can be appropriate for this historic neighborhood, but we believe that a number of details need to be refined in order for the building to better fit in. The proposed windows should be true divided lights not grille divided lights, and a 6/1 configuration may be appropriate. Above, the roof should be of slate with copper flashings, or possibly a synthetic slate product with copper flashings. Finally, we believe the technical execution of the exposed timber requires further study, and we question whether pressure-treated lumber is an appropriate or even feasible product for this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. And I will try Regina once more. So Regina, I'm promoting you to panelist. So if you are with us, please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Okay, so Regina just declined to be promoted to panelist, and that is all the hands that are raised of people who have not spoken yet. So I will also note that Queens Community Board 12 has not sent us their official resolution yet. However, they did confirm via email that they do approve of this application.
Okay, thank you very much. And before I turn back to the applicant, I just would like Mark to address the comments about a legal issue that is outside of our purview and our review.
Thank you, Chair. So as I understand it, there's a private dispute between the applicant in this case and a neighbor over property lines, and perhaps there's been an easement of some sort, but that's not an issue that we and they've asked us not to act today. I think that given this is a private dispute, our action today will not affect the legal rights of either party in either case. And so I think we can continue to move forward. And if there's a decision to act today, we should do that.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'd like to turn back to the applicant and ask if you'd like to respond to any other comments.
My name is Jerry Caliendo. I'm the architect. We heard the comments, and we will work with staff to address any of the issues that were brought up relative to the exterior facade, and the details that were brought up to be refined.
Okay, thank you. All right, commissioners, do we have any final questions? Okay, so I think we can close the hearing and move to our discussion. So Commissioner Lutfi, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Gustafson, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the hearing is closed, and we'll begin our discussion on this proposal for this new building on this corner in this historic district. Commissioner Jefferson, would you like to start this one?
Yes, sure. This is an interesting proposition in that the Tudor revival style is appropriate, but the building itself, the way the plan is set up, is almost like a brownstone. You're approaching it on axis, and it has a brownstone feel rather than approaching it on the long facade. But accepting that the elevations, the Tudor style has such a free feeling to it. It architecturally, it has this freedom that you could have doing it. And if you look at the long facade, it's so tight. It feels like an urban project. The windows are not, the tightness of the where they have the dormers, the type is very tight. It feels alignment. It lacks a certain amount of freedom on the facade. That's possible. I think if they regrouped the windows, came up with different kind of extended the wood thing into the ground floor, make it a little more exuberant would be good. The front facade is fine, but go to the front facade. The image of the front facade. The entry, I mean, it has this kind of free feeling to it, free flowing feeling, but should be more. I think they could look at the facade and play with it more and take it to another level, if you will.
Okay, great, thank you. Commissioner Gustafson?
Yeah, I think I agree that the one of the choices possible is the Tudor revival style. And then, of course, the first thing you confront is how well can you actually do it so it actually fits in and seems to make sense. And I think the devil is in the details here. We're looking at the front facade. I'm not sure I've seen a roof line on a Tudor revival that looks quite like this. There's something unusual about the sort of framed, when you look at it hit dead on like this, it almost seems like there's this six-sided object that disrupts the view of the peak of the roof. And on the side, there's the first floor is where I guess I have issues on the side view. It seems because it's almost a primary view of the house, it needs, and I think maybe I'm agreeing with Commissioner Jefferson, it needs more going on. It looks more like the side of a house that's actually not being seen. I think the style is acceptable. It's one of the choices they can make, but if they're going to do that, I think they have to really study more of the houses of that style in and outside of this district.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Commissioner Bergen is gone. Commissioner Goldblum.
I'm totally on board with Everardo and John. And my contribution to the conversation will be as follows. There's one very hard rule to the Tudor. And if you look at the examples that were shown, most of the examples that look like real good Tudor houses and don't look kind of like someone was doing them with a squint is very steep roofs, very steep roof lines. And this front facade, in essence, has a very shallow roof line. And that shallow roof line is repeated twice. And then where you would expect to see the point here in the front, he cuts it off and makes it into a gambrel. So I think that's kind of what's making this seem like a not quite Tudor house. So what I would suggest is, number one, pointier roofs. Number two, brick base. You look at the buildings that you see throughout Queens, I would guess that 75% of the ones that look like proper Tudors have a brick base, stucco second floor. It's just an easy way to achieve what Everardo, I think, was shooting for. So if you stick to those rules, I think you'll probably get yourself out of this problem. And the Tudors, the Queen's Tudors are very interesting because not only because there's so many that are good, but because there's so many that are bad. And it really teaches you, especially in this district, the difference between a good Tudor and a bad Tudor. And I think that those 2 points, differentiating materials from the ground floor to the second and pointy, those will get you where you need to go.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Devonshire?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Michael said. And if we could switch to that side facade for a second, it reinforces his statement about there having to be a brick base, because in this particular situation, it looks like the framing, I mean, these things are intended to replicate a Tudor framed house. And in this particular aspect, there's this framing that's bizarrely floating in midair. And so what they need to do, perfect, they need to have a brick base on it. The other thing that I think is going to be problematic is that they're calling for pressure treated lumber half timber framing and painting it. For one thing, it's very difficult to get paint to stick to pressure treated lumber because it's got a copper sulfate material on it that wants to throw off paint. The other problem is that anything that's going to be pressure treated is going to be a stock lumber, which doesn't have a crisp edge like a hewn or a sawn piece of oak. It's going to have that oddly milled edge that you find on stock lumber, which would be completely inappropriate in a situation like this. So they in my opinion, they need to resolve that problem as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioner Chen.
Yeah, I think the consensus seems to be, from what I'm hearing, is that most board members have want further refinement of this details on the proposal. So I defer to them.
Commissioner Bland.
I didn't hear if required setbacks were the reason that we have a brownstone layout here disguising as a Tudor. But another aspect of Tudor houses, I think, in addition to the ones that have been described already, particularly those attributes by Michael Goldblum, is a more robust massing. So I don't know if this was all prescribed by zoning or something, but if not, I don't know why it all has to be constrained into a shoebox. So they might want to break out of the box a little bit, as well as the other comments that have already been made. But I think it needs more work. Tudor is certainly an appropriate style here to mimic. There's nothing wrong with that. But once you mimic a style, as always, God is in the details, and it's going to be tricky. But with our staff helping, I think they can get it right.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioner Lafay.
Everybody's made great points, and I agree with everything that's been said. And this last point that Fred made was something I was feeling like I can't seem to understand why this building is so constrained. But it feels like it needs a little more room. And because the size of the site is a nice size, and doesn't have to be massive, but it just needs a little more breathing room. And then all of the other comments, I think, can be incorporated in a more elegant way. The interest on the front entrance, everything's so jammed that it's the articulation is not really doing anything from a design standpoint. And it just feels like we needed to get every angle in here as we possibly could, and they're running into each other without having any breathing room. And the side clearly wants, and they're going to have to look at their internal. I mean, at a minimum, it needs a window or something just right there in the middle that would provide, again, give it more of a presence. But maybe if there's an opportunity to expand a little, that could change the look and feel of the side in a positive way from a design standpoint. So
Okay, great. Good. Thank you all, commissioners, for your thoughtful comments. And so I think where we are is that we won't take an action today. We do all agree that a building is appropriate, can be appropriate in this location, and that the Tudor revival style could be an appropriate approach, particularly in this historic district. But that in choosing that style, one needs to really understand the features and characteristics of that style. And so we've made a number of suggestions here, which are all very good suggestions. And I think we'll ask the applicant to continue to work with the staff to think about changes that would bring this building closer to that style in terms of, more exuberance, pointier roofs, brick base, more primary presence on the long facade. And we'll see you back as soon as you're ready. So we'll take no action today and ask you to keep working on this. And that concludes our public hearing today. Thank you all for your hard work. I want to thank all the members of the public who come and testify for our items, and all of our applicants who work so hard to maintain their landmark buildings. So thanks to everybody.